Chapter 2157. Half a day later. Illusory Magic Mountain Range. Yang Hongwu, Zi Xintong, and the others had arrived at the Illusory Magic Mountain Range. The Illusory Magic Mountain Range looked ordinary, but it contained a terrifying, murderous aura. The entire Illusory Magic Mountain Range looked like an ordinary mountain range, but in fact, it was an enormous spatial world. Once one entered the Illusory Magic Mountain Range, it was equivalent to entering a great world. Nobody knew how many terrifying existences were hidden in the Illusory Magic Mountain Range. After all, the Illusory Magic Mountain Range was formed by the fall of a supreme expert. Of course, although the Illusory Magic Mountain Range was very dangerous, it was also full of opportunities. If one was lucky, one could obtain great benefits in the Illusory Magic Mountain Range. However, generally speaking, adventurers who entered the Fantasy Demon Mountain Range would not easily enter the Fantasy Demon Abyss, which was the core of the Fantasy Demon Mountain Range. It could even be said to be one of the most dangerous places in the entire Fantasy Demon Mountain Range, or even the entire God's Domain. Yang Hongwu and the others' purpose this time was to enter the depths of the Illusory Magic Mountain Range, the Illusory Magic Mountain Range. Are you sure you want to go in? Zi Xintong looked at Yang Hongwu and said, "The person you are looking for did not leave any message. Can't she come out and find us?" Looking at the majestic mountain range in front of her, Zi Xintong was somewhat worried. Although she had never entered the demonic fantasy mountain range, she knew that the demonic fantasy abyss was not a baseless rumor. Since there was such a terrifying rumor, then there must be a reason for it. Now, they were only at the periphery of the mountain range. Once they entered, it would be difficult to turn back. But now, they could still make a decision. Once they entered, there was no way out. "We must go in." Yang Hongwu said, "You can stay here, but there is no need to take risks with me. I know your intention, but if I can come back safely, you don't need to say any more. I will go in with you." At this time, Zi Xintong interrupted Yang Hongwu's words and said, "Since I have already promised you, I will not go back on my words. But shouldn't we be better prepared? Or should we find someone familiar to lead the way? Find a guide? There is no time." Yang Hongwu shook his head and said, "I do not want to delay at all. Time is pressing. Moreover, you said that Zi Tian's strength is constantly improving. Zi's strength, his divine domain, is not long after Zi's strength will break through the bottleneck of this world realm, the limit of the divine domain, and Tao Lord realm. Once Z breaks, becomes a Tao master, it will be difficult to defeat him. Once Z becomes a Tao master and Tao master realm, he will end it and God realm, Z's realm, and he realm, Z, he Z." After a pause, Yang Hongwu continued, "As for the matter of finding a guide to lead the way, it is completely unnecessary because if this illusory demon abyss is really so terrifying, finding a guide is completely meaningless. Ordinary people simply do not dare to go deep into the illusory demon abyss. Even if we find a suitable guide, at most they can only take us to the entrance of the illusory demon abyss, which is only in the Illusory Demon Mountain Range. It is impossible to take us into the Illusory Demon Abyss and find the person I am looking for." "You're right." Zi Xintong nodded. When Yang Hongwu and the others were about to enter the Magic Mountain Range, there was a spatial fluctuation. At this time, several people came out of the Magic Mountain Range. These people appeared to be in a very sorry state. Their bodies were stained with blood and riddled with wounds. When they saw Yang Hongwu and the others, they looked like they were facing a great enemy and got into an attacking posture. "Who are you?" The man who took the lead asked. He was the least injured and was the strongest. He had reached the early stage of Tao Lord Realm. In the whole 13 divine domains, there were only a few people who had reached the Tao Lord Realm. Generally speaking, they belonged to the forces of the divine domains. However, the Tao Lord Realm warrior in front of them did not belong to the 13 divine domains. "Who are you?" Zi Xintong asked. "Why do you look so miserable?" "Let's go, senior brother." "Ignore them. Let's go back." At this time, the woman behind the man said, The man nodded and was about to leave when Yang Hongwu blocked their way and said, "You don't have to worry. The three of us don't have any bad intentions. We just want to know more about the Magic Mountain Range." "You want to enter the Magic Mountain Range?" "That's right," Yang Hongwu said. "To be honest, I am a master of the common people's divine domain. This time, I want to enter the Magic Mountain Range to deal with some matters. However, I'm not familiar with the Magic Mountain Range. Seeing that you have come out of the Magic Mountain Range, I want to know more about the situation." "Master of the common people's divine domain?" The leader looked at Yang Hongwu and was slightly stunned. "Isn't the master of the common people's divine domain the common people's divine lord? I have seen the common people's divine lord before. You are not. Could it be that something happened to the common people's divine lord and you inherited his legacy?" "That's right." Yang Hongwu nodded and didn't deny it. To Yang Hongwu, he didn't want to create more problems. After all, it was better to have less problems. "My name is Huang Zhong. We are disciples of the Golden Tao Palace from the upper world. This time, we came to the Magic Mountain Range to deal with some matters." Huang Zhong said, "If you want to enter the Magic Mountain Range, I suggest you give up. The Magic Mountain Range is filled with danger. Unless you're a Tao Sovereign expert, you will be in great danger." Yang Hongwu smiled bitterly and said, "To be honest, I have no choice but to enter the Magic Mountain Range. Of course, I know how terrifying the Magic Mountain Range is. However, I have no choice but to enter. I wonder if you can tell us more about the situation?" Seeing Yang Hongwu like this, Huang Zhong paused and said, "Since you want to enter, I can't stop you." In fact, to Huang Zhong, it had nothing to do with Yang Hongwu. If Yang Hongwu wanted to enter, he naturally wouldn't stop him. As for the situation in the Magic Mountain Range, it wasn't a problem to tell Yang Hongwu. As for the illusory demonic mountain range, it's not the same as before. It's even more terrifying than before. We came down to the mortal world this time because of the terrifying existence in the illusory demonic mountain range. The illusory demonic mountain range was originally a terrifying existence formed by the fall of a supreme devil. Now, that supreme devil has shown signs of reviving. We came down to the mortal world to inquire about the news. Now, we can confirm that the terrifying existence is about to revive. Once it revives, the entire divine domain may fall into a terrible crisis. Chapter 2158. Which Supreme Almighty is it? Yang Hongwu asked curiously. The resurrection of a supreme being was indeed very powerful. From their conversation, he could tell that the supreme being was definitely an existence that surpassed the Tao Master Realm. If it was only a Tao Master Realm cultivator, then no matter how powerful the ominous land formed after his death was, it was impossible for the entire divine realm to fear it. Yes, since even the divine realm of the upper world was afraid of it, it was enough to prove that the supreme being was absolutely terrifying when he was alive. Once the supreme being was resurrected, no one in the entire divine realm would be a match for him. It would cause a storm of blood, which was why they were so afraid of him. The great sage, Huang Zhong, said, "That Almighty is called Tao Destroyer Supreme." Back then, the great Tao of the all-heaven divine realm was damaged by him. Even now, the great Tao of the all-heaven divine realm is still incomplete. It is because of this that the all-heaven divine realm has fallen to such a state. Otherwise, how could the all-heaven divine realm have fallen to such a state and become a declining universe? Yang Hongwu was shocked to hear Huang Zhong's words. From Huang Zhong's tone, the so-called divine realm was merely a declining universe? Then, there seemed to be many universes that were more powerful than the divine realm. Yang Hongwu really didn't know much about these. Originally, Yang Hongwu thought that a spatial world was a universe, and a divine realm was a universe. However, now it seemed that a small spatial world was far from being a universe. However, that supreme being was really terrifying. He dared to use the two words Tao, extermination, as the word seal. It was enough to show how terrifying he was. What was even more shocking was that the supreme being's strength was also incomparably powerful. He even destroyed the great Tao of the divine realm and made it incomplete. If he had such strength, what would he have to worry about? Thinking of this, Yang Hongwu couldn't help but smile bitterly and sigh in his heart. It seemed that his understanding of this world was still too little. Even if he had now become the master of the divine realm, even if he had integrated the lower world and the 13 divine realms together and obtained the entire lower world, his strength might not be able to compete with the so-called the Great Sage. Now, Yang Hongwu was even more worried about Lu Yu. Since such a terrifying existence was about to awaken in the illusory demon abyss, wouldn't Lu Yu be in danger? He had to enter the illusory demon abyss as soon as possible and rescue Lu Yu. Moreover, if he found Lu Yu, he might be able to find out how he came to this world and how he transmigrated. Of course, for Yang Hongwu, being able to see Lu Yu again made him very happy. However, if he saw Lu Yu again, Yang Hongwu didn't know how to face her. After all, he was no longer the Yang Hongwu of the past. Back then, he only had Lu Yu in his heart, but now, there were many women in his heart. If he was asked to give up on by Iran, Zhang Qiushuang, and the others, Yang Hongwu absolutely couldn't do it. To be able to destroy the great Tao of the divine realm, his strength is too terrifying. Since the other party is so powerful, why did he fall here? Zi Xintong asked. Rumor has it that he died because of a battle with the great Tao. Although his great Tao was damaged, he was also seriously injured. When he was seriously injured, the experts of the divine domain joined forces to kill him and seal him in the lower divine domain. In fact, the current lower divine domain is not a true divine domain, but a taboo divine domain. The taboo divine domain is the taboo divine domain of the entire divine domain. The entire taboo divine domain is divided into several pieces, and a part of that person's body is sealed in each piece. Huang Zhong said, in that great battle, the experts of the divine realm killed the great sage and divided the great sage's body into 13 parts and sealed them in these 13 forbidden divine realms. In the illusory demon abyss, the most important part is sealed, which is a part of his brain. This is too shocking. Zhang Qiushuang was also shocked and said, whether it's true or not, we don't know. It's just a rumor, but one thing is certain. In the illusory demon abyss of the illusory demon mountain range, a terrifying expert has indeed fallen, and the evil intent of this expert is about to awaken. Therefore, if you want to enter the illusory demon mountain range, you must be very careful. However, I suggest that you don't enter. Huang Zhong reminded again. Thank you, Brother Huang. I have no choice but to enter. Yang Hongwu shook his head and said, since you must enter, I hope that this information will be of some help to you. Huang Zhong raised his hand and condensed a ball of light. This is some of the information I obtained in the illusory demon mountain range. Thank you very much. Yang Hongwu was very happy to see this. Although this information couldn't be of great help to Yang Hongwu, it could help Yang Hongwu understand the situation in the illusory demon mountain range. It's time for us to leave and return to the sect to inform the sect master of the situation here. So, let's meet again in the future. After that, Huang Zhong and the others waved their hands and opened a passage. They stepped into the passage and disappeared on the spot. Yang Hongwu could feel that Huang Zhong and the others had indeed gone to the upper world. As for the information left by Huang Zhong, Yang Hongwu also checked it. Currently, the illusory demon mountain range was indeed full of danger. Many creatures had become demonic creatures and evil spirits, losing their self-consciousness. However, their strength had increased tremendously, In the illusory demon mountain range, even the ordinary insects had become very terrifying after being contaminated by the evil aura. If they were not careful, even an emperor would be easily killed. Some of them were even comparable to a sovereign realm expert. Yang Hongwu, Huang Zhong's origin is mysterious. His words may not be reliable, but one thing is for sure. The illusory demon abyss is indeed full of danger. We must be very careful this time. Zi Xintong said. Huang Zhong's words are partly true and partly false. Yang Hongwu nodded. Huang Zhong, and they had just met by chance. How could he possibly tell the truth? However, what Huang Zhong had said might not be all lies. Some of it was true. At least, some of the memories that Huang Zhong had left for Yang Hongwu were true. Of course, Huang Zhong had underestimated Yang Hongwu by leaving a mark in those memories. It might be difficult for an ordinary Dao lord to discover this mark, but for Yang Hongwu, this mark was nothing at all. It was easy for him to erase it. Chapter 2159. Although his words aren't entirely true, it's still helpful to us. At least, he told us something about the illusory Demon Mountain Range. Yang Hongwu said, after all, they had never entered the illusory Demon Mountain Range before. They had only heard rumors about it, and had never seen it with their own eyes. Let's go in now. Yang Hongwu took the lead and walked into the illusory Demon Mountain Range. After entering the illusory Demon Mountain Range, Yang Hongwu felt the difference between the outside world and the illusory Demon Mountain Range. The entire illusory Demon Mountain Range was just as Huang Zhong had said. The spiritual qi in the illusory Demon Mountain Range was very violent and contained a terrifying demon qi. The violent qi in the spiritual qi was not something that ordinary people could absorb. If one cultivated in such a place for a long time without special cultivation techniques or treasures, it would be a dead end. Sooner or later, one would lose his mind and self. The spiritual qi here is full of violent qi. If one absorbs this spiritual qi for a long time, one will fall into the evil Dao sooner or later. Zi Xintong looked around and said, although this place appeared to be overgrown with trees and was full of vitality, there was a terrifying, murderous intent hidden within this vitality. These trees are contaminated with murderous qi. It's terrifying. Zhang Xiaoshuang looked at the surrounding vegetation and said, this is a spirit cleansing pill. Yang Hongwu took out 2 pills and handed them to the 2 girls. This pill will not be affected by the spiritual qi here. You can absorb the spiritual qi here without worry. For any cultivator, absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was a necessary thing. Of course, if one's strength was enough, it was possible to not absorb the spiritual qi for a long time. However, in this way, one's strength would decrease with time. After all, as long as one moved, one would consume energy. If one consumed energy, one would need to replenish it. Otherwise, one's strength would decrease. This was also the reason why some weak warriors would fall into the devil's path and die after entering the illusory Demon Mountain Range. It was because they were too weak and couldn't resist the spirit qi of heaven and earth contained in the illusory Demon Mountain Range. The 2 girls took the pills. Immediately, they felt that the spiritual qi here could no longer affect them. As a result, the 2 girls were relieved. Shuang, did Liu tell you where she is? Or did she tell you that anyone can find her after entering the illusory Demon Mountain Range? Yang Hongwu asked as the 3 of them walked forward. Zhang Xiaoshuang shook her head and said, no, she just told me that she would find you after entering the Phantom Mountain Range. You'll come to me after entering the Phantom Mountain Range? Yang Hongwu took a deep breath. If it were other women, such as Zhang Xiaoshuang and Bai Yiran, he would be able to sense them as long as they were not isolated by a super expert. However, he could not sense Liu Yu. Although Liu Yu was his girlfriend on Earth, in fact, Yang Hongwu and Liu Yu had not really been together. Moreover, at that time, he was just an ordinary person. It was impossible for him to sense Liu Yu's soul aura. However, Yang Hongwu was very curious. He seemed to have transmigrated here with his body. How did she know about him? Thinking of this, Yang Hongwu guessed that his ability to transmigrate here had a lot to do with Liu Yu. Since there's no other way, let's go to the illusory demon abyss. Yang Hongwu said, since Liu Yu told Zhang Xiaoshuang about the illusory demon abyss, she was most likely in the illusory demon abyss. Of course, Yang Hongwu was curious about why Liu Yu was in the illusory demon abyss. Could it be that she had something to do with the so-called the Great Sage? Or was she the successor of Grand Monarch, Dao Destroyer? Or was she here to seal Grand Monarch, Dao Destroyer? No matter what the case was, he had to go to the illusory demon abyss to see Lu Yu and figure things out. Oh no, we're in trouble. At this time, Zi Xintong said, "Someone is following us." Yang Hongwu said, "I noticed a long time ago, but I didn't expect these guys to be so impatient." "Who is it?" Zheng Qiushuang said, "Could it be Huang Zhong's group?" After the three of them entered the illusory Demon Mountain range, they didn't encounter any other people, cultivators, or even strange beasts. The only people they encountered were Huang Zhong's group. "No, it's not them." Yang Hongwu shook his head and said, "However, these people are Huang Zhong's enemies. The aura left by Huang Zhong's group's injuries is from these people." "So, we were tricked by Huang Zhong's group?" Zi Xintong's face sank. The three of them had encountered Huang Zhong's group, and Huang Zhong had also given some information to Yang Hongwu. Naturally, the aura of Huang Zhong's group was left on their bodies. In this way, if they encountered Huang Zhong's enemies, they would naturally think that Yang Hongwu's group was with Huang Zhong's group. "Damn it, that bastard Huang Zhong dared to trick us. When I go to the upper realm, I will definitely settle the score with them." "Well, let's see what they want to do now." Yang Hongwu said, "These people weren't weak, but they didn't show any signs of demonization." Therefore, Yang Hongwu guessed that these people weren't the devils in the illusory Demon Mountain range. Of course, they could also be the natives of the illusory Demon Mountain range. Although the spiritual qi in the illusory Demon Mountain range contained terrible evil qi, it didn't mean that no one could cultivate here. Some special cultivators could directly dissolve the evil qi in the illusory Demon Mountain range. It was just that ordinary people couldn't do it. "You guys, you have followed us for so long. It's time for you to come out, right?" Yang Hongwu shouted. As soon as Yang Hongwu's voice fell, a rustling sound was heard, and then several black-robed men appeared in front of them. These black-robed men were very strong, and the strongest one was at the peak of the Tao Lord realm. Of course, the weakest one was at the half-step Tao Lord realm. The reason why this group of people didn't make a move for so long was probably because they were afraid of Zi Xintong and Zheng Qiushuang. After all, Zi Xintong and Zheng Qiushuang were both Tao Lords. If these black-robed men attacked, they might not be able to gain the upper hand because they were all injured to different degrees. "Who are you? Why did you intrude into the illusory Demon Mountain range? What is your relationship with that bastard Huang Zhong?" The leader looked at Yang Hongwu and said coldly. Chapter 2160. Huang Zhong. We have nothing to do with him. Yang Hongwu shook his head. "Guys, you've got the wrong person. Impossible. You guys have Huang Zhong's scent on you. You can't fool me." Li Sun said, "To be honest, we're here to look for someone in the illusory demon abyss. We met Huang Zhong outside, and he told me some information about the illusory Demon Mountain range." Yang Hongwu shook his head. "We have nothing to do with him. Now that I think about it, I understand why Huang Zhong told me about the illusory Demon Mountain range, even though he's not related to us. It turns out that he's trying to trick us." Li Sun frowned. He didn't fully believe Yang Hongwu's words. After all, there was indeed Huang Zhong's aura on Yang Hongwu's body. This was something that could not be concealed and could not be denied. "Senior brother, you can't believe his words," Song Yuan said. "It's fine if you don't believe me. If you really want to fight, do you think we're afraid of you? I just want to enter the illusory demon abyss to look for someone. I don't want to waste time and get entangled with you guys. Don't force me." Yang Hongwu looked at them and said coldly. What a big tone. When Song Yuan heard this, he glared at Yang Hongwu and the others. "Senior brother, wait." At this moment, another person spoke up. This person had white hair, and even his eyebrows were white. He was the weakest, but when he spoke, Song Yuan, who was about to attack, stopped. So did Li Sun. "Shuiji, what do you think?" Li Sun said, "Senior brother, these three people shouldn't have anything to do with Huang Zhong. If they're with Huang Zhong, they can fight us directly. If they join forces with Huang Zhong, do you think we have a chance of winning?" Shuiji said, "Yes, that's true. If they join forces, we won't be able to fight against them." Li Sun nodded. "Who are you looking for in the illusory demon abyss?" I advise you not to go. The illusory demon abyss is now filled with danger. That terrifying existence is about to awaken. If you go in, you'll just be courting death. Li Sun looked at Yang Hongwu and said, since you have nothing to do with that bastard Huang Zhong, then let's part ways here. After saying that, Li Sun waved his hand and led everyone away. However, Song Yuan secretly said, Senior brother, are we leaving just like that? Those people are definitely related to Huang Zhong and the others. Although they aren't disciples of the Oris Dao Palace, they are definitely related to them. Do you think we can gain an advantage if we go against them? Li Sun said, Song Yuan, you need to change your character. You need to learn how to use your brain. TSK, I won't learn from him. Look at little Ji. His hair is all white, and his cultivation is mediocre. I don't even know when he will break through to the Dao Lord realm. Song Yuan said disdainfully, you only know how to talk. Your strength is nothing. In this world, strength is the foundation. Everything else is meaningless. Without strength, everything is in vain. No matter how many schemes you have, in the face of absolute strength, they are not worth mentioning. Song Yuan didn't care about schemes at all. In his heart, strength was the foundation. Your strength is mediocre as well. Shuiji wasn't too happy when he heard Song Yuan's words. He said coldly, you're just a brute. Your strength is far from being able to ignore schemes. I only need a small scheme to deal with you. You want to try? Song Yuan was angered when he heard that and said coldly, if it weren't for me, you would have died in Huang Zhong's hands. How dare you say that? Shuiji said coldly. You. All right, stop arguing. Wait. Shuiji's face suddenly changed. What's wrong? Li Sun's face darkened when he saw Shuiji's reaction. What's wrong? We've been tricked. Song Shuji said, those people have the demon attracting incense on them. What? Damn it. We should have killed them just now. Li Sun's face changed when he heard that. No wonder I felt something was wrong just now. It was Huang Zhong's aura that made me ignore the demon attracting incense. Now, we've also been infected by it. Song Shuji said, Senior brother, we have to leave this place as soon as possible. Otherwise, we'll be besieged by demons. It's too late. Li Sun smiled bitterly. In front of them, there was a terrifying aura. Smoke and dust filled the sky. Dense demonic insects and beasts had appeared. Let's go back. Song Shuji said, let's go back. At this moment, Yang Hongwu's expression changed drastically as he felt the terrifying aura. We're in trouble. At this moment, Yang Hongwu also sensed that terrifying demonic insects and exotic beasts had appeared from all directions and were closing in on them. So many demonic insects and beasts. Zi Xintong's face changed. The illusory demon mountain is really terrifying. What should we do? If we're surrounded, we won't be able to resist at all. Are they the ones who attracted them? At this time, Zi Xintong saw Li Sun and the others quickly catching up. Damn it! How dare you trick us? Zi Xintong looked at Li Sun and the others in anger. It's not them. Yang Hongwu shook his head and stopped Zi Xintong. They don't have the ability to do that. Bastard! How dare you say you're not Huang Zhong's people? How dare you trick us? Senior brother, let's kill them first. Song Yuan was furious when he saw Yang Hongwu and the others. They were surrounded by these demonic insects and beasts. There was no hope for them to escape. The hope of survival was too slim. Song Yuan, don't be impulsive. Li Sun pulled him and said, we've all been tricked by Huang Zhong. Everyone, you've been poisoned by the demon attracting incense. These demonic insects and beasts are gathered because of the incense. Demon attracting incense? Yang Hongwu narrowed his eyes. He hadn't expected himself to be so careless. Although he hadn't heard of the demon luring incense before, he was certain that the demon luring incense was extremely terrifying. Just from its name, one could tell that the reason for the gathering of demonic insects and mutated beasts was because of the demon luring incense. Yes, the demon attracting incense has a fatal attraction to the demonic insects and beasts in the illusory Demon Mountain range. Li Sun said, now, we have to join hands to have a chance of survival. Otherwise, we'll definitely die. There are too many demonic insects and beasts in the illusory Demon Mountain range. There are countless of them. Is there no other way to get rid of these demonic insects? Yang Hongwu asked. There are simply too many of these demonic insects. Although the individual strength of these demonic insects wasn't that great, there were simply too many of them. Chapter 2161. There's no other way, unless we have the 10,000 insects token. Li Sun shook his head. The 10,000 insects token was the most precious treasure of the ancient 10,000 insects sect. It had been lost when the 10,000 insects sect was destroyed. Therefore, it was impossible for the 10,000 insects token to appear here. No one can control the demonic insects here, even if you have the beast taming technique. The only way to control them is to have a strong enough divine power and reach the Tao Master Realm. In this case, the demonic insects won't dare to come close under the pressure of the divine power, but it's impossible. Song Xueji said, "We can only join forces and hope to buy some time." Is it the only way? Song Yuan said, "Is there no other way? I don't want to die here." At this moment, Song Yuan's heart was on the verge of collapse. Although he believed in strength above all and despised people like Song Xueji who liked to scheme and scheme, he was very clear about the current situation. These demonic insects were terrifying. If they relied purely on strength, it was impossible to resist them. Now, we can only join forces and fight our way out. Only then will we have a chance to survive. Li Sun looked at Yang Hongwu and the other two and said, "You're strong. If we join forces, we still have a chance to fight our way out." "No need." Yang Hongwu shook his head and said, "These demonic insects are terrifying, but I don't think they're a threat." Yang Hongwu could certainly avoid these demonic insects. However, the biggest problem for Yang Hongwu now was the devil-attracting incense on his body. If the devil-attracting incense could not be removed, it would continuously attract these demonic insects. If he could not solve this problem, he would be in trouble no matter where he went. Therefore, what Yang Hongwu had to do now was to find a way to remove the aura of the devil-attracting incense. "You have a way?" Song Xueji looked at Yang Hongwu in astonishment. He could hardly believe his eyes. The devil insects had always been a huge problem. Even experts at the Tao Master Realm were helpless against them. It was not that they were unable to kill them, but that there were too many of them. For these devil insects, if they were killed, they would split into two. The more they were killed, the more there would be. Only the divine power could completely wipe out these devil insects. Other forces could only restrain them at best. If you have a way to deal with these demonic insects, my Tao Palace will owe you a favor. Li Sun said, "What I'm saying is that I can get rid of these demonic bugs. As for you, I'm powerless." After saying that, Yang Hongwu grabbed Zi Xintong and Zheng Qiushuang and activated the void teleportation technique, instantly disappearing from the spot. Seeing Yang Hongwu and the other two disappear, Li Sun's face changed greatly. Song Yuan was incomparably furious. "Senior brother, we've been schemed against. Those people are definitely related to that dog Huang Zhong." At this time, they could only face these devil insects. It was easier said than done to kill their way out. There was no end to the devil insects. They can't run away. Li Sun shook his head and said, "He has the devil attracting incense. For us, it's good for them to escape from here. These devil insects will seek out the aura of the devil attracting incense. We don't have the aura of the devil attracting incense. As long as we can withstand a wave of them, we will be safe." At this time, Yang Hongwu appeared on a small mountain. This small mountain was filled with a gloomy and cold aura, which made people feel very uncomfortable. "This is a mountain of bones." "So many bones?" Zi Xintong stomped her foot, revealing eerie white bones. This small mountain was actually piled up with bones. The entire radius of 100 feet was filled with bones. Yang Hongwu took in a deep breath. These skeletons were extremely horrifying. In the distance, there was an even larger mountain which was filled with bones. This skeleton was filled with a terrifying pressure. "What is that? What a terrifying aura." Zhang Xiaoshuang took a deep breath and looked at the huge skeleton in the distance. She couldn't help but be shocked. Yang Hongwu was also shocked. Devil insects. So many devil insects. While the three of them were shocked, countless devil insects crawled out of the huge skeleton. They were extremely fast and densely packed. In just a few breaths, tens of thousands of devil insects had appeared. These devil insects rushed towards Yang Hongwu and the other two in a frenzy. Damn devil attracting incense. Yang Hongwu didn't have any information about this place in the information that Huang Zhong gave him. He didn't know what kind of existence this huge skeleton was, but from the pressure it gave off, he could guess that this person's strength was quite terrifying. He didn't know what kind of existence this skeleton was when it was alive, but it must have been very powerful. Otherwise, how could its skeleton be so terrifying? This skeleton seemed to be the nest of those devil insects. The densely packed devil insects seemed to have no end. What should we do? Zi Xintong said, there are too many of these devil insects. We can't deal with them at all. It's the devil attracting incense on my body. It hasn't been removed yet. As long as the devil attracting incense is removed, these devil insects won't be a threat to us. Yang Hongwu frowned slightly. It was impossible to keep running. If so, it would consume a lot of Yang Hongwu's energy. Moreover, he wasn't familiar with the illusory demon mountain range at all. It wouldn't be a good thing if he kept using the spatial travel mystic technique to teleport through the illusory demon mountain range. It would be troublesome if he accidentally teleported into the lair of some terrifying exotic beast. I'll try to kill these devil insects. Yang Hongwu said to Zi Xintong and Zi Xintong, you two step back. After saying that, Yang Hongwu flew up and rushed towards the huge skeleton. Those devil insects noticed the arrival of Yang Hongwu and swarmed towards him. Wherever the devil insects went, it instantly turned into a barren land. Nothing was left. There were still a lot of plants on the ground, but after the devil insects passed by, everything was devoured. This showed how terrifying these devil insects were. This reminded Yang Hongwu of the marching ants on Earth. These devil insects were the ultimate version of the marching ants. Their strength was much, much more terrifying than the marching ants. Red Lotus Karmic Fire, come out. Yang Hongwu shouted. With a wave of his hand, the red lotus of karmic fire burst out. Flames filled the sky and instantly shrouded the area within a radius of 100 feet. The demonic insects were instantly set ablaze and made sizzling sounds. However, the devil insects behind were not afraid at all. Even if there was a terrifying karmic fire in front of them, these devil insects still crazily rushed forward. At B. Pin Fun Library. Chapter 2162. There are too many of them. Even if the karmic fire can burn a lot of them, there's still an endless number of them. If this continues, the situation won't be good. In the distance, Zi Xintong slightly frowned and said, do you have a way to help my husband? Zhang Xiaoshuang looked at Zi Xintong and asked. Zi Xintong was stronger than her. Zhang Xiaoshuang could clearly feel that she couldn't help Yang Hongwu now. If it was before, she still had a part of the inheritance of the Ice Saint domain. But now, she had already given the inheritance of the Ice Saint domain to Xue Xue Wu. Therefore, she didn't have enough strength to help Yang Hongwu. She could only protect herself in the face of danger. Let's continue watching. If Yang Hongwu still can't do anything, then I'll take action. Zi Xintong still had a trump card. After all, these demonic insects were just low-level devils. She was from the Saint Devil clan. If she paid a certain price, she could deter these demonic insects. However, doing so would cause her a lot of harm. Unless it was absolutely necessary, she didn't want to do so. What do you think? While the two were discussing, Yang Hongwu took out a huge furnace. This was Yang Hongwu's devouring furnace. As soon as the devouring furnace appeared, it crazily devoured the demonic insects. My God, is he crazy? He actually dares to devour these demonic insects. These demonic insects contain a terrifying demonic chi. Ordinary people can't completely refine them. If he devours them, he will be contaminated with demonic chi. Once the demonic chi is too strong, he will fall into the devil path. Zi Xintong opened her eyes wide and said, "This, I believe in him. Since he dares to do this, he must have enough confidence." Zhang Qiushuang knew Yang Hongwu very well. Yang Hongwu generally wouldn't fight a battle that he wasn't confident in. He was a very careful person. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't take risks. And now, although the situation was very critical, it was obvious that they had not reached the end of the line. Yet, Yang Hongwu had done so. From this, it could be seen that Yang Hongwu was confident enough to refine these demonic insects without being affected by the demonic nature. Zi Xintong nodded. She understood Yang Hongwu very well and trusted Yang Hongwu. At this moment, Yang Hongwu was frantically devouring and refining these demonic insects. These demonic insects were not very strong. Refining these demonic insects would provide Yang Hongwu with a lot of energy. However, the quantity was terrifying. As long as he refined these demonic insects, his cultivation would increase tremendously. However, refining these demonic insects was also risky. These demonic insects contained a special demonic nature in their bodies. Even if Yang Hongwu could refine this demonic nature, he would have to pay a great price. Moreover, if these demonic insects were really endless, he wouldn't be able to refine them completely. After all, using the devouring furnace to devour and refine these demonic insects required a lot of energy, especially mental energy. Although Yang Hongwu's mental energy was extremely powerful and far exceeded that of ordinary Dao Lords, it was still limited. It wasn't endless, and there would be a time when it would be exhausted. Therefore, Yang Hongwu wasn't sure how many demonic insects he could devour and refine. However, judging from the current situation, his mental energy consumption was too fast. Devouring and refining these demonic insects was definitely not enough to raise his cultivation to the Dao Lord realm. At this moment, in the illusory fiend abyss, a dignified old man opened his eyes. His eyes were looking at Yang Hongwu. What a young man to be able to devour and refine these insects. This dignified old man was a supreme expert in the illusory demon abyss. He wasn't the terrifying existence that had fallen, but he was here to suppress the terrifying existence in the illusory demon abyss. His strength was at the Dao sovereign realm. He had been suppressed in this place for countless years. He had been here ever since that terrifying existence was suppressed. Originally, this deity realm was unable to withstand the presence of a Dao master. However, he had sealed his cultivation to suppress this place. It's a pity that I'm too weak. If I'm a half-step Dao master, I wouldn't have to suppress this place. The old man narrowed his eyes and murmured. This old man was called Misery Sea Holy Man. After Grand Sovereign Dao Destroyer was suppressed, he was sent here to guard a part of Grand Sovereign Dao Destroyer. Now, countless years had passed, and his strength had gradually diminished because of the suppression of Grand Sovereign Dao Destroyer's body. Now, he was no longer at his peak strength. However, Grand Sovereign Dao Destroyer's strength continued to grow because of his weakening, and there were signs of him awakening. Although he was very anxious, there was nothing he could do. This was because he had no other choice. His life was coming to an end, and he would die in a few more days. He would no longer be able to suppress the Great Sage. Once the Great Sage could no longer be suppressed, the Great Sage would make a comeback. At that time, the entire divine realm would once again fall into a terrible crisis. The current All Heavens divine realm was no longer the All Heavens divine realm of his time. Due to the terrifying war back then, many experts of the current All Heavens divine realm had fallen. Countless years had passed, but the entire All Heavens divine realm had yet to recover. Therefore, once the Great Sage revived, no one would be a match for him. Because of this, he activated the trump card left behind by that person. However, although he activated the trump card left behind by that person, he still did not see what it was. However, a young girl came here a few years ago. She was only a peak Dao Lord, and her strength was far from enough to suppress the Great Sage. Misery Sea Holy Man, at this moment, a girl appeared beside Misery, see Holy Man, and said, "That person is the one I've been waiting for. You're saying that he can deal with the great sage?" Misery, see Holy Man, looked at the girl in front of him in disbelief. He could tell that although Yang Hongwu was not bad, his cultivation was too low. He was not even a Tao Lord and was only in the sovereign realm. It was impossible for him to deal with the great sage, even if it was a sealed the great sage. Therefore, he said, "Are you sure? Although this kid is not bad, he's only in the sovereign realm. He's far from enough to suppress that person." This girl was none other than Lu Yu, whom Yang Hongwu was looking for. When she saw Yang Hongwu appear, Lu Yu's eyes flashed with excitement. However, when she saw the two girls beside Yang Hongwu, Lu Yu felt uncomfortable. Chapter 2163. I didn't say that. My master said that. Back then, my master brought me and him to this world so that we could deal with this calamity and the existence of the great sage. Lu Yu said, "If it was said by that senior, then it should be true." The Misery, see Holy Man, nodded his head and did not refute. That existence was far beyond what he could compare to. That existence was even more terrifying and powerful. If he could make a move, then the great sage would not be a problem at all. That existence was rumored to be the creator of the All Heavens Divine Realm. The All Heavens Divine Realm was his world, and he was the creator. However, no one knew whether this was true or not. Nevertheless, it was rumored that he was the creator of the All Heavens Divine Realm. Now, he only left behind an avatar to control the All Heavens Divine Realm. In other words, it was the Great Tao. The Great Tao of the All Heavens Divine Realm was just a strand of his consciousness. "I'll go and fetch him," Lu Yu said. "You don't have to take the risk, do you?" The Misery, see Holy Man, frowned slightly. Once Lu Yu went out, he might cause a special energy fluctuation. In that case, it would be easier for the Great Sage's seal to be broken. This was something that the Misery, see Holy Man, did not want to see. "I want to go out," Lu Yu said coldly. "I'm not discussing this with you. I'm just informing you." The Misery, see Holy Man, laughed bitterly. There was no other way. He could not restrict Lu Yu. Although Lu Yu was only in the Tao Lord realm, he was at the end of his life. Furthermore, he had to use all his strength to suppress the great sage. "All right, I'll send you out." The Misery, see Holy Man, nodded his head. After he finished speaking, a passageway appeared in the space. After this passageway appeared, Lu Yu stepped into it. In the next moment, Lu Yu appeared in front of Yang Hongwu. At this moment, Yang Hongwu was frantically refining the demonic insects. When he felt the fluctuation in space, his expression changed as if he was facing a great enemy. In the Illusion Demon Mountain range, there were many dangers. Any fluctuation in space could lead to the appearance of a terrifying enemy. Yang Hongwu did not doubt this at all. If an even more terrifying and powerful enemy appeared, it would be troublesome. Therefore, the moment he felt the fluctuation in space, Yang Hongwu was ready to deal with it. An ancient and majestic seal was released. This seal was the life seal. Yang Hongwu was multitasking. If the fluctuation in space was an enemy, he would not hesitate to give up on dealing with the demonic insects and attack the enemy. However, the moment the enemy appeared, Yang Hongwu was stunned. This was because the enemy was none other than Lu Yu. Although Lu Yu did not cultivate back then, Yang Hongwu was too familiar with Lu Yu. Even though the two of them did not truly merge into one, they were still very familiar with each other. Between the two of them, besides the most intimate thing, they had done everything else. Therefore, when Lu Yu appeared, Yang Hongwu was sure that this was Lu Yu and not someone else. "You are." Yang Hongwu looked at the person who came and said. He was very excited. "It's me. You're finally here. I've been waiting for you for a long time." Lu Yu said, "I didn't expect that you would also come to this side of the world." Yang Hongwu took a deep breath and looked at Lu Yu. He was very happy. He had a lot to say, but he didn't know where to start. He didn't know how to say it. "Wait a moment. Let me deal with these demonic insects first." After saying that, Yang Hongwu began to concentrate on refining these demonic insects. However, The demonic insects and the huge skeleton seemed to be afraid of Lu Yu's appearance. They did not continue to rush towards Yang Hongwu, which surprised Yang Hongwu. "I'll help you." Lu Yu could tell that although these demonic insects were powerful, they were excellent supplements for Yang Hongwu and could help him improve his cultivation. Although others did not know, Lu Yu knew that these demonic insects were transformed from the body of the Tao Master in front of him. This powerful body was a powerful Tao Master called the Demonic Insects Tao Master when he was alive. After his death, he turned into countless demonic insects and lived in the illusory Demon Mountains. It could be said that these demonic insects were the masters of the illusory Demon Mountains. Of course, the illusory Demon Abyss was not among them. The illusory Demon Abyss was even more terrifying. This was because the illusory Demon Abyss was suppressed by the remains of the Great Sage. That was the real core of the illusory Demon Abyss. "Help me." Upon hearing this, Yang Hongwu was stunned. He found that Lu Yu's strength was so powerful that he could not see through him. For Yang Hongwu, this was very surprising. Although his cultivation was only in the Dominator realm, he had a powerful eye technique and the Dharma Eye of Devastation. It could be said that as long as the cultivation was not more than 2 realms higher than his, he could see through some clues. However, he could not see through Lu Yu's strength. It could be seen that Lu Yu's cultivation was very powerful and much stronger than his. It should be noted that although Yang Hongwu's cultivation was only in the Dominator realm, with the help of the Dharma Eye of Devastation, it was impossible for him to not see through the strength of a real Tao Master. Because of this, Yang Hongwu knew that Lu Yu was not simple. However, this made Yang Hongwu happy and conflicted. Even now, Lu Yu's cultivation was stronger than his. As a man, it was very shameful that his cultivation was inferior to a woman's. Of course, this was just the result of his male chauvinism. As soon as his voice fell, Lu Yu waved his hand and a ray of light fell on the huge skeleton. The huge skeleton instantly shrank and turned into a ray of pure energy. Then, the pure energy flew toward Yang Hongwu. Yang Hongwu could clearly feel that this pure energy was very powerful. Moreover, most of the demonic nature had been neutralized. Therefore, this energy saved Yang Hongwu a lot of trouble. Of course, it was not something that ordinary people could refine. Although most of the demonic nature had been neutralized, it did not mean that the demonic nature in the energy had been completely neutralized. Without the demonic aura, there was very little of it left. However, ordinary people could not bear it at all. As long as they were contaminated by it, they would fall into the devil's way. Yang Hongwu took a deep breath and looked at the ball of energy that was flying towards him. It was so huge that it was enough for a Tao Lord expert to break through the limit and break through to the Tao Master level. It was obvious how terrifying this energy was. Chapter 2164. Yang Hongwu didn't hesitate and threw the huge ball of energy into the devouring furnace to refine it. Lu Yu's voice sounded in his ears. "This ball of energy is huge and can improve your cultivation by a lot. However, don't take the risk. This energy contains a terrifying devil will. If you can't refine it and get rid of the devil will, it's better not to use it to improve your cultivation. It's not worth the loss." "Don't worry, I know what to do." Yang Hongwu nodded. He knew that it was not easy to completely refine this huge ball of energy and get rid of the devil will in a short time. It could easily cause trouble. Therefore, Yang Hongwu was not in a hurry. He threw the ball of energy into the devouring furnace and refined part of it. As for the other part, he could directly seal it and release it at a critical moment. It was a very good choice to use it as a trump card. "I'll protect you. You can control this energy first," Lu Yu said to Yang Hongwu. She knew that if this energy was not handled well, there would be great hidden dangers. Of course, she also knew Yang Hongwu's potential and believed that he could handle this energy. Otherwise, she wouldn't have taken a risk to give this terrifying energy to Yang Hongwu. "Miss Lu, who are you? What's your relationship with Yang Hongwu? Why did Yang Hongwu take such a huge risk to meet you after hearing your name?" At this moment, Zi Xintong also knew that this woman in front of her was the person Yang Hongwu took such a huge risk to meet. She was very curious. Why was this woman so charming? Why did Yang Hongwu risk his own life to enter the illusory demon abyss? Of course, Zi Xintong was also shocked by Lu Yu's terrifying strength. This woman's strength was simply amazing. She was probably comparable to the experts in the Dao Master realm. Zi Xintong was a very proud woman. She was also very conceited. She thought that she was the strongest woman around Yang Hongwu. Even Hong Qiao and Zheng Qiushuang were far inferior to her. She should be stronger than any of them. Moreover, her talent was also outstanding. Her status was also very high. One must know that she was the princess of the Holy Devil clan and possessed the supreme bloodline of the Holy Devil clan. Just based on this point, almost none of Yang Hongwu's women could be compared to her. However, now, a very strange woman had appeared. It was Lu Yu in front of her. She had never heard of this woman before. Moreover, her strength was so powerful and terrifying. Not to mention the lower realm. Even in the entire divine domain, she had never heard of such a woman. Such a powerful woman absolutely couldn't be unknown. When facing Lu Yu, she felt a sense of crisis, but it also stimulated her thoughts of comparison. I've known him for a long time. Lu Yu said, we came from the same place. No, I've never heard of you. Zi Xintong said, there's no such person like you in the ancient desolate continent. Not the ancient desolate continent, but his previous life. I came from the same place as him in his previous life. Lu Yu smiled. Of course you haven't heard of me. Lu Yu couldn't tell Zi Xintong that she and Yang Hongwu both came from Earth. Although Zi Xintong and Yang Hongwu had a close relationship, Zi Xintong might even be Yang Hongwu's woman. Previous life? Zi Xintong and Zheng Qiushuang were slightly surprised. For them, it wasn't strange for a cultivator to have a previous life, especially for Zi Xintong. She was a powerhouse in her previous life, a powerhouse of the Saint Devil clan. Now that she had recovered part of her memory, her strength had also recovered a lot. Of course, her memories were just memories. She was still Zi Xintong, controlled by her consciousness and memories of this life. That's right. Lu Yu nodded. I wonder if elder sister can tell us about his previous life? Zheng Qiushuang's eyes lit up. She was very curious about Yang Hongwu's previous life. Was he a peerless powerhouse in his previous life? Zi Xintong was also curious because they knew that Yang Hongwu should be very powerful in his previous life. Otherwise, Yang Hongwu wouldn't have such a domineering power in his body. It was impossible for some ancient powerhouses to be afraid of him. Therefore, the two girls guessed that Yang Hongwu should be a very powerful powerhouse in his previous life. He was majestic and had supreme prestige. Lu Yu was stunned for a moment, but she immediately reacted. She could see the power in Yang Hongwu's body. Lu Yu's current strength was already at the peak of the Dao Lord realm. Although she hadn't entered the Dao Master realm yet, her strength was already enough to contend with ordinary Dao Masters. Her master's strength was very terrifying. She and Yang Hongwu were both brought to this universe from Earth by her master. Even though her cultivation had reached such a level, it was impossible for her to break through the universe barrier and return to the original world, the original Earth. She couldn't even locate the location of that world and couldn't touch the universe barrier. Therefore, she clearly knew how terrifying and powerful her master's strength was. After all, to cross such a distant void, find that universe, and break through the universe barrier, the amount of energy required was too great. It was unimaginable how powerful he was. It was precisely because of this that she knew how powerful her master was. In fact, her master had told her that the reason he had brought her and Yang Hongwu to this great cosmos was to save this great cosmos. However, she didn't really believe it. Her master's strength was enough to protect this great cosmos. She didn't know what her master's purpose was, but she never doubted her master. Let's talk about this later. Just as Lu Yu was about to speak, Yang Hongwu had finished sealing the energy. His strength had also improved greatly. Although there was still a long way to go before he reached the Dao Lord realm, His cultivation had also improved a lot. As for the energy, Yang Hongwu had only refined a small part of it. The rest was sealed in the common people's great world by Yang Hongwu. Yang Hongwu didn't dare to release this part of the energy and integrate it into the common people's great world. This was because the common people's great world was the foundation of Yang Hongwu. It was his inner world. If he didn't remove the demon will and integrate it into the common people's great world, then his world might become a demon domain. This wasn't something Yang Hongwu wanted to see. At Bika Library. Chapter 2165. Congratulations, your strength has improved greatly. Zi Xintong was very happy to see Yang Hongwu awake. Although Yang Hongwu's strength hadn't reached the Tao Lord realm, she could clearly feel the terrifying power in Yang Hongwu's body. This power was enough to defeat her. If she didn't use any trump cards, Zi Xintong would have no way of contending with Yang Hongwu. It could even be said that if she faced Yang Hongwu, she wouldn't be able to resist at all. From this, one could see how terrifying Yang Hongwu's strength was. Yang Hongwu also discovered that his battle strength had increased tremendously compared to before. Now, he had only swallowed and refined a small portion of the energy, and he had already obtained such a huge increase. If he were to refine all of it, how much would his battle strength increase? This was absolutely unimaginable. However, Yang Hongwu was very clear that if he continued to devour and refine the energy without any scruples, it wouldn't be a good thing for him. His strength would increase too quickly. In addition, this energy contained a terrifying evil intent. If he was too reckless, it was very likely that he would no longer be himself. He would lose himself and become a puppet of power. He might even turn into a demon. Yang Hongwu had always been very careful, and now it was the same. He didn't dare to be too unbridled. Come with me. This isn't the place to talk. At this time, Lu Yu saw Yang Hongwu and wanted to ask. She knew very well what Yang Hongwu wanted to ask, but this wasn't the right place. Okay. Yang Hongwu nodded and said to Zi Xintong and Zheng Xiushuang, let's go. Wait, you trust her that much? Zi Xintong frowned slightly and said, aren't you worried that she will scheme against us? Although Lu Yu said that she and Yang Hongwu came from the same place, that was after all their previous lives. A person's previous life might not be able to dominate. Moreover, Yang Hongwu and Lu Yu had both reincarnated. Although they could remember the things of their previous lives, they might not have the same feelings as their previous lives. Just like Zi Xintong herself, she didn't have the same memories of her previous life. Those memories and those emotions weren't that important to her. I believe in her, Yang Hongwu said. Yang Hongwu's eyes were very firm. Obviously, he wouldn't change his mind because of Zi Xintong's words. This made Zi Xintong very depressed, but there was nothing she could do. Since Yang Hongwu had already made up his mind, there was absolutely no way she could change it. Since she couldn't change her mind, she couldn't change her mind. Yang Hongwu's words' eyes. Facing Zi Xintong's doubts, Lu Yu smiled slightly. She knew very well, but she didn't say anything. This was human nature. When she first came to this world, she was also very suspicious of her master. Zheng Xiushuang didn't doubt Yang Hongwu at all. Although she was worried, she also knew that Yang Hongwu must have his own plans. He wouldn't put himself in danger. She trusted Yang Hongwu very much. She knew that Yang Hongwu was the same as her. He would rather die than let the other party suffer the slightest bit of harm. Therefore, Zheng Xiushuang trusted Yang Hongwu. Since Yang Hongwu trusted Lu Yu so much, then Lu Yu shouldn't have any problems. Taking a step back, even if there was something wrong with Lu Yu, Yang Hongwu should have a plan. The three of them came to Lu Yu's side. Lu Yu waved his hand, and a transmission channel appeared in front of them. This transmission channel contained ancient and majestic power, but it was also filled with a terrifying murderous intent. This murderous intent made them shudder. Yang Hongwu frowned slightly. This murderous intent made him feel threatened. Let's go, Lu Yu said. Seeing Lu Yu step into the transmission channel, Yang Hongwu didn't hesitate and followed closely behind. Of course, he held Zheng Xiushuang's hand and Zheng Qiushuang held Zi Xintong's hand. After stepping into the transmission channel, the four of them appeared in another space. In this space, there was a person sitting cross-legged. This person exuded an ancient power. His aura was majestic, but there was also an aura of decay. This person was the Misery Sea Holy Man. After Yang Hongwu and the other three appeared, the Misery Sea Holy Man's murderous intent became even more intense. You can't hold on any longer? After realizing this, Lu Yu frowned slightly. The Misery Sea Holy Man couldn't suppress that person anymore. This surprised Lu Yu. This was beyond her calculations. According to her calculations, the Misery Sea Holy Man should still be able to hold on. He shouldn't be in such a precarious situation because she brought Yang Hongwu and the other two here. I can't suppress him anymore. The Misery Sea Holy Man turned around and looked at Lu Yu and the other three. You are Yang Hongwu? The Misery Sea Holy Man looked at Yang Hongwu. Since Yang Hongwu was the person chosen by that person, he should have something special about him. However, Yang Hongwu's cultivation was still too weak. The Misery Sea Holy Man couldn't see how Yang Hongwu could suppress the Great Sage. Even if only a part of the Great Sage was sealed here, Yang Hongwu couldn't fight against it. This was because his cultivation and strength were too weak. He was pitifully weak. Even if he could challenge those of a higher level and was a peerless genius, he could only fight against a peak Dao Lord. He couldn't possibly fight against a peak Dao Master. The Misery Sea Holy Man was a peak Dao Master. If he couldn't suppress this part of the Great Sage, how could Yang Hongwu do it? Senior, who are you? Yang Hongwu looked at the Misery Sea Holy Man and then at Lu Yu. He hoped that she could give him an explanation. The Misery Sea Holy Man had killing intent towards them. This was a good thing. Furthermore, he could see that the Misery Sea Holy Man was very powerful. However, there was a decaying aura on his body. It seemed like his vitality was about to be cut off. A Dao Master with decaying vitality and killing intent wasn't a good thing. Yang Hongwu couldn't help but think of something, which was possession. Was this person trying to possess him? To Yang Hongwu, this wasn't something strange. This was because he had met too many experts who wanted to possess his physical body. If the person in front of him was an ancient expert, it wouldn't be strange if he had such thoughts. This was because it was very normal. Yang Hongwu knew that his physical body and bloodline were very powerful. Even some Dao Masters were attracted to him. Chapter 2166. Awu, this is the Misery Sea Holy Man. He is the one who suppressed the Great Sage's physical body with the talisman seal. Lu Yu introduced. Don't be rude to your senior. Senior has suppressed the Great Sage here for countless years. Now that he is nearing the end of his life, the Great Sage can no longer be suppressed. You and I need to work together to continue suppressing the Great Sage. The Great Sage's physical body? Yang Hongwu looked at Lu Yu. Yang Hongwu did not doubt Lu Yu's words. However, Yang Hongwu did not believe the Misery Sea Holy Man in front of him. This guy was nearing the end of his life, and his entire body was filled with the aura of death and decay. Such an expert was very scary even when he was about to die. Yang Hongwu did not believe that everyone could face death calmly. Especially for those with higher cultivation, they did not want to die. In order to survive, they would usually do anything. Even if they had to pay a huge price, they would still do it. To them, surviving was the most important thing. Most of these people, when faced with a life or death situation, would throw caution to the wind and fight for a chance to live. The Misery Sea Holy Man in front of him was obviously at that stage. Although others could not sense the murderous intent in his eyes, it could not escape Yang Hongwu's eyes. Yang Hongwu had cultivated the 10-direction killing fist and had a special cultivation technique. He could clearly sense murderous intent, especially when it was directed at him. Obviously, the Misery Sea Holy Man was like that. Although his murderous intent towards Yang Hongwu was well concealed and disappeared in a flash, Yang Hongwu could still sense it clearly. That's right. A part of Supreme Sovereign Tao Destroyer's body is sealed here. Senior misery, C, can no longer suppress it. Supreme Sovereign Tao Destroyer will soon awaken. If we don't suppress him, I'm afraid the entire deity domain will be destroyed. Once Supreme Sovereign Tao Destroyer awakens, not just the deity domain, but the entire deity domain will be plunged into a terrible disaster. Lu Yu nodded and said, "In fact, this is also the reason why I only came to find you now. It is also the reason why you and I have to appear here. This is fate. Our fate and mission is to suppress the great sage." Lu Yu's words left Yang Hongwu half believing and half doubting. Although Lu Yu was very important to Yang Hongwu was not a fool. He could not completely trust Lu Yu just because of a few words from Lu Yu. After all, he had not seen Lu Yu for so many years. Although Yang Hongwu was confident that Lu Yu's feelings for him would not change, he could not be certain about other things. In fact, Yang Hongwu knew that Lu Yu did not have any ill intentions towards him. She would not plot against him. However, even if Lu Yu did not plot against him, it did not mean that the Misery Sea Holy Man would not plot against him. The Misery Sea Holy Man was not a kind person. Furthermore, Yang Hongwu guessed that the Misery Sea Holy Man did not intend to suppress the great sage here. He was forced to do so. If possible, who would be willing to face such a terrifying existence in such a place? Although he said that he was here to suppress the great sage, in reality, the illusory demon abyss was like a prison. It was impossible for a person to not have any thoughts in such a prison. Right now, he was at the end of his life. However, Yang Hongwu's arrival gave him a chance. It gave him a chance to live. Would he give it up? The only thing that he was wary of was the person behind Lu Yu. That was the person who wanted him to suppress the great sage here. That person's strength was too terrifying, too terrifying. The longer he stayed here, the more he felt how powerful and terrifying that person was. He was someone who could suppress the great sage. What kind of person was the great sage? The Misery Sea Holy Man was very clear about this point. However, to the current him, even if he knew how terrifying that person was, he would not give up such an opportunity. Because, to him, since he was going to die, what else could make him afraid? What else could make him afraid? If he did not succeed, he would die. Since that was the case, why not take a gamble? If he succeeded, he would have profited greatly. In reality, when Lu Yu arrived, the Misery Sea Holy Man had already reached an agreement with the great sage. If not, how could the great sage recover so quickly? This was almost impossible. The Misery Sea Holy Man was not that simple. He was hiding his true strength. Of course, his lifespan was indeed at its end. He was already surrounded by the aura of decay and was on the verge of death. He reached an agreement with the great sage for the sake of this scheme. "Lad, your cultivation is too weak. Although you are valued by that person, I don't think you can do it. Lu Yu, are you sure that this lad is the person that he has chosen? You have to be clear that if anything happens to the great sage, there will be no other choice. My lifespan is almost up, and I'm about to die. I can't be of much help to you. I might even be controlled by the great sage. When that happens, my physical body might become your enemy. You have to be clear about this. When that happens, it means that you will have to face 2 Tao Masters." The Misery Sea Holy Man looked at Yang Hongwu and turned to Lu Yu. Yang Hongwu narrowed his eyes and activated his Dharma, Eye of Annihilation. He had already discovered the Tao Annihilation aura on the Misery Sea Holy Man's body. The great sage had left a unique aura on the Misery Sea Holy Man. This aura did not cause any harm to the Misery Sea Holy Man. Instead, it helped him. The seal formation below seemed to be suppressed by the Misery Sea Holy Man's power. However, this was only on the surface. As long as the great sage willed it, this seal would break immediately. The great sage would break out of the seal. However, the great sage did not do so. This made Yang Hongwu very suspicious. This was only a part of the great sage's physical body. Furthermore, it was a head. The great sage's head. This head contained a terrifying aura and was constantly devouring the power of the entire divine realm. Furthermore, it was not only the divine realm of the lower world that was devouring the power of the upper world. Yang Hongwu was extremely shocked. When he used his Dharma Eye of Annihilation to peek at this head, he felt a terrifying impact. He had been discovered. He had been discovered. After taking a deep breath, Yang Hongwu's expression turned ugly. This was a huge crisis. Lu Yu, listen to me. Leave this place. Yang Hongwu turned his head and said, that person is not someone you and I can deal with. At least, we can't do it now. At Bikuku. Chapter 21:67. Leave? No, we can't leave this place. Master asked me to stay here to suppress the great sage. It's the same for you and me. Lu Yu shook her head and said, Awu, don't you believe me? Looking at Yang Hongwu, Lu Yu's tone was very serious. If Yang Hongwu was unwilling to believe her, Lu Yu would be very sad. Seeing Lu Yu like this, Yang Hongwu felt a headache coming on. At this moment, there were some things that he couldn't say directly. If he said it, the Bitter Sea Holy Man might attack him directly. Now, the Bitter Sea Holy Man was not on guard. However, he was already in his calculations and could attack at any time. This was an extremely troublesome matter. If the Bitter Sea Holy Man allied with the Great Sage, he, Zi Xintong, Zhang Qiushuang, and Lu Yu would definitely not be a match for the Bitter Sea Holy Man. Lu Yu, listen to me. Things aren't as simple as you think. The Bitter Sea Holy Man isn't one of us. Supreme Sovereign Tao Destroyer has already broken the seal, but he hasn't done anything yet. I'm afraid he's plotting against us. The Bitter Sea Holy Man has already reached an agreement with Supreme Sovereign Tao Destroyer. Yang Hongwu said telepathically. Impossible. Lu Yu was shocked when she heard this. She said to Yang Hongwu, Senior Bitter Sea, how can that be? He has suppressed the great sage for countless years and has done great deeds. How can he reach an agreement with the great sage? This is impossible. I don't believe it. Yang Hongwu laughed bitterly. However, he understood Lu Yu very well. If it was him, he wouldn't believe it so easily either. After all, the Bitter Sea Holy Man had indeed guarded this place for countless years. His deeds were indelible. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he had done great deeds. I don't deny that. However, some things are not as simple as what we see. Some things can't be seen on the surface. Although I don't admit that the Bitter Sea Holy Man has done a lot of good deeds, is he really willing to do that? Is he really willing to stay here and protect the Tao Destroyer Supreme Sovereign? I don't think so. Furthermore, he is nearing the end of his life. His will is no longer as strong as before. Furthermore, there is the influence of the great sage who is about to break out of the seal. Therefore, it's still unknown whether the Bitter Sea Holy Man is still the same as before. Yang Hongwu explained. He wanted to persuade Lu Yu in the shortest time possible. Although he could leave immediately, he couldn't let Lu Yu be in danger. After all, Lu Yu was his woman and equally important to him. Also, Lu Yu is related to the secret of how he entered this world. What kind of person was her master? From Lu Yu's words, Yang Hongwu vaguely understood that the reason why he and Lu Yu entered this universe was because of her master. You also said that the Bitter Sea Holy Man's life is nearing its end. Why would he still cooperate with the Great Sage? I don't believe that the Great Sage can give him any benefits. Don't tell me you can give him enough lifespan to break through? Lu Yu frowned slightly and said. She didn't doubt Yang Hongwu because she knew very well what kind of person Yang Hongwu was. Furthermore, even if Yang Hongwu had many women now, she didn't believe that Yang Hongwu would harm her or lie to her. If Yang Hongwu no longer had feelings for her, then Yang Hongwu wouldn't take such a huge risk to enter the illusory demon abyss after hearing about her. The illusory demon abyss was the most terrifying place in the entire divine realm. Even Tao Lords, half-step Tao Masters, and even Tao Masters would find it difficult to leave this place. Countless experts had died here. Yang Hongwu's current cultivation was only at the sovereign realm. No matter how talented and outstanding he was, he couldn't be more powerful than a Tao Master. Moreover, even if he had a way to avoid some risks, There was no need for him to risk his life to meet someone he no longer had feelings for. Therefore, Liu knew very well that Yang Hongwu's feelings for her were still the same as before. Just like herself, her feelings for Yang Hongwu had not changed from the beginning to the end. Of course, Liu was very angry about the fact that Yang Hongwu already had many women. However, she also knew that Yang Hongwu had a special physique. If he wanted to live, he had to find women with a pure yin physique. Moreover, the cultivation method he cultivated was also very special. Therefore, he was destined to have more than one woman. Even if Liu Yu was unhappy about this, she couldn't change it unless she was willing to see Yang Hongwu die. Of course, this was impossible. She would never allow Yang Hongwu to die. Perhaps it is? You should know what level Tao Destroyer Supreme Master is at. At that level, as long as you have enough strength, you can be immortal. If Misery, Holy Man, wants to continue living or enter a higher realm, the only one who can help him is Tao Destroyer Supreme Master. There's nothing strange about this. Yang Hongwu continued to explain when he saw that Liu Yu was starting to believe him and started to waver. Perhaps what you said is true, but I still can't leave. After a pause, Liu Yu's eyes were resolute. She transmitted her voice to Yang Hongwu and said, "Take them and leave first. I want to see if this is really the case. If Senior Misery, really betrayed us like you said, then I will deal with him." "No." Yang Hongwu stopped her. "You're no match for them. The Misery Holy Man is extremely powerful, and the Great Sage is even more terrifying. His power far exceeds that of the Misery Holy Man. Even if it's just a head, it's still very frightening." Yang Hongwu knew very well that at the Great Sage's level, he was probably immortal. Almost no one could kill him. If he could really be killed, then the experts who defeated the Great Sage would not have just separated the Great Sage's body and suppressed it. Instead, they would have killed him and destroyed him completely. Since they did not kill him and only suppressed him, it was enough to prove that the Great Sage was immortal. In other words, only special people could kill him. However, the people who could kill him had to be extremely powerful. It was probably impossible for a Tao Master to do so. Perhaps even a great Tao Master would not be able to do so. They might have to surpass that level. If it was really as he thought, Liu Yu would definitely die if she stayed behind alone. Chapter 2168. You go first. Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm strong enough to fight against the Misery Holy Man. Moreover, I still have the life-saving trump card that my master left for me. Liu Yu said, "Go. Where do you think you're going?" At this point, the Misery Holy Man said coldly. He actually heard the conversation between the two. At this point, the entire illusory demon abyss was sealed. The Misery Holy Man stood up and looked at Yang Hongwu. He said coldly, "Kid, your physical body belongs to me. Senior Misery you betrayed us?" At this point, Liu Yu finally understood that what Yang Hongwu said was true. The Misery Holy Man had really betrayed them. He had probably teamed up with the Great Sage and submitted to the Great Sage. "Initially, I didn't want to kill you. However, now that you know, you're dead for sure." The Misery Holy Man looked at Liu Yu. Liu Yu was very strong. Furthermore, he definitely had the protection of that person. Therefore, it would not be easy to kill Liu Yu. However, if he allowed Liu Yu to leave safely, the fact that he had teamed up with the Great Sage would be exposed. However, if he wanted to kill Liu Yu, the other party would also sense it. This was because Liu Yu was his disciple. If something happened to Liu Yu, the other party would definitely come here to investigate. In this way, he would still be exposed. This was something that gave him a huge headache. He could not kill Liu Yu, nor could he not kill Liu Yu. Therefore, he could only seal Liu Yu here. Senior Misery is this worth it? You will not have a good ending for submitting to the Great Sage. Do you know that? Although Liu Yu knew that the Misery Holy Man had betrayed them, she was still very calm. The Misery Holy Man was very strong. However, he was on the brink of death. His lifespan was almost up, and he could not unleash his peak strength. Therefore, she was not afraid of the Misery Holy Man. However, she was worried about the great sage. If the great sage was in a sealed state, it wouldn't be difficult for her to seal the head of the great sage. But now, she couldn't do it. If the great sage had broken the seal, she wouldn't be able to deal with the great sage, even if she was several times stronger. Shut up. Upon hearing Lu Yu's words, the Misery Sea holy man was infuriated. He said coldly, Lu Yu, who do you think you are? If you did not have a good master, you would be nothing. You are probably not even in the sovereign realm now. You are just lucky. Furthermore, your master, that old thing, what right does he have? Why should I suppress the great sage here? Did he ask me for my opinion? Suppressing him here will exhaust my cultivation and my lifespan. I won't even have the chance to improve. My cultivation and my lifespan are constantly being depleted. After so many years, my lifespan is about to be depleted. What have I gained? As he thought of this, the Misery Sea holy man was furious. He was dissatisfied and filled with hatred. After all, he was a Tao master. Yet, he had to suppress the head of the great sage here. This was something he was unwilling to do. Li took a deep breath. She was very clear about this. In fact, if she was in his position, it was impossible for her to not feel resentful. Master knows about your situation. As long as we seal Grand Monarch Tao Exterminator, Master will definitely compensate you. Lu Yu looked at the Misery Sea holy man and said, she wanted to persuade the Misery Sea holy man. After all, without the Misery Sea holy man, she would not be able to complete her task. She would not be able to seal the great sage. She might even be killed instead. She and Yang Hongwu might die here. If the Misery Sea holy man did not betray her, then she could join forces with Yang Hongwu to continue sealing the great sage. However, if the Misery Sea holy man betrayed her, then the possibility of her defeating the Misery Sea holy man and sealing the great sage was too low. After all, Yang Hongwu's cultivation was too weak. After all, he was only in the sovereign realm. If Yang Hongwu's cultivation was at the Tao master level, then dealing with the Misery Sea holy man and the great sage's head would not be a difficult task. Haha, Lu Yu, you don't have to say anymore. If that old thing really thought of this, why hasn't he appeared after so many years? Furthermore, he hasn't appeared until now. Why'd he send a little girl like you? He doesn't care about me at all. Furthermore, I'm afraid that the celestial realm is nothing in his eyes. In his eyes, we, and even the great sage, are just his toys. We're just his pastimes. The Misery Sea holy man was furious. The great sage had told him many things. He had suppressed the great sage for so many years. How could he not communicate with the great sage? 1,000 years ago, he was still as firm as a rock and would not be affected by the great sage. However, as time passed, he was no longer the Misery Sea holy man of the past. He did not want to die. He wanted to reach a higher level. What he wanted could not be given to him by others. However, the great sage could give it to him. It was because of this that he reached an agreement with the great sage. The great sage gave him the opportunity to break through. He gave him a chance to break through from the Tao master level to the great Tao master level. Now, the opportunity had come. As for the great sage, he could have broken the seal a long time ago. He could have charged out of the illusory demon abyss and regained his freedom. However, he did not do so. His strength had not recovered. Once he left this place, he would be suppressed by Lu Yu's master, Furukarat Daizuan. He was looking for an opportunity to recover his strength. What he wanted to do was to wait for an opportunity to find his physical body and regain his peak strength. Now was the time for an opportunity. The ancient Desolation Supreme Venerate wasn't in the celestial realm. His true body was trapped in another great cosmos. Therefore, the great sage knew that his opportunity had come. The great Tao of this universe had been scattered by him and had yet to recover. Therefore, once his physical body was reassembled, the great Tao of this universe would not be able to restrict him. As for the Misery Sea holy man, this was also an opportunity for him. With his help, the great sage could speed up his recovery. He needed an assistant to help him find his physical body quickly. His physical body was sealed in the celestial realm. It was divided into 13 pieces and sealed in the 13 celestial realms. He could not act without restraint. Therefore, he needed the Misery Sea Holy Man to help him complete it. He gave the Misery Sea Holy Man the opportunity to break through and become a great Tao master. Chapter 2169. Shut up, Misery Sea Holy Man, shut up. Master is not that kind of person. Lu Yu was infuriated when she heard that Misery Sea Holy Man had insulted her master. In Lu Yu's heart, her master, Ancient Desolation Supreme Sovereign, was the most respectable person. His strength was also incomparably powerful. How could Lu Yu not be infuriated when Misery Sea Holy Man insulted her master in such a manner? Angry? Angry? Misery Sea Holy Man said coldly, "You don't know how shameless that old thing is?" Back then, he could have sealed the great sage outside the celestial realm in the boundless void. However, he did not do so. Do you know why? Misery Sea Holy Man was furious when he thought of this. He was filled with resentment towards Furukura Daizuan. He did not want to expend his own powers. He did not want to expend a portion of his powers because sealing the great sage in the boundless void would deplete his powers. In that case, he would no longer be able to dominate and control the celestial realm. Furthermore, his cultivation would not be able to improve further because he had to suppress the great sage. Misery Sea Holy Man said, "He is an extremely selfish person. I'm afraid that he has his own plans for nurturing you." Misery Sea Holy Man was not a fool. He could tell that Furukura Daizuan valued Lu Yu so much because Lu Yu had something special about her. However, Misery Sea Holy Man's powers were limited, and he could not tell what was so special about Lu Yu. Although her body constitution was strong, it was not the best. Of course, Yang Hongwu was the same. Yang Hongwu had a pure Yang body constitution, while Lu Yu had a pure Yin body constitution. If the two of them were to cultivate together, it would not be as simple as 1 + 1. However, they would only be able to cultivate faster than the average person. In reality, it was not that fast. Don't be angry. When Yang Hongwu saw Lu Yu like this, he hurriedly said, "If you are angered by him, you will fall into his trap." The Bitter Sea Holy Man wanted to pit himself, Lu Yu, and the rest against him. This was the Bitter Sea Holy Man's territory, and he definitely had the upper hand. The Great Sage was an even scarier and more terrifying existence. This was the true Great Demon King. Once the Great Sage made his move, all of them would probably die here. Lu Yu calmed down when he heard Yang Hongwu's words. She was an intelligent woman. If she had not been angered and influenced by the Misery Sea Holy Man, she would not have been so angry. That's right. I didn't expect you to be able to get rid of your anger so quickly. But so what? The Misery Sea Holy Man said coldly, "Now, the illusory demon abyss has been completely sealed by me. You can't leave. Surrender. If you surrender, you will still have a chance to live." The Misery Sea Holy Man knew that Lu Yu definitely had a trump card. It was a trump card left behind by Furukura Daizuan. It was definitely a terrifying trump card left behind to deal with the Great Sage. If it was not a critical moment, Lu Yu would definitely not use it. And the Misery Sea Holy Man wanted to force out this trump card. Because once this trump card was forced out, the Great Sage would not have any restrictions or scruples. However, that would be extremely dangerous for him. It could even endanger his life. However, he had received the Great Sage's promise that nothing would happen to him. That was why he was so fearless. Do you really think that I don't have a trump card? Misery Sea Holy Man, do you think that Master didn't plot against you when you betrayed him and fell into the satanic way? Lu Yu said coldly, "You underestimate Master." With that, Lu Yu took out an item. It was a talisman. This talisman was Furukura Daizuan's original spirit avatar. This avatar contained a portion of Furukura Daizuan's power. If it was unleashed, it would definitely be invincible in this world. The Misery Sea Holy Man's expression changed when he saw this talisman. Original Spirit Avatar. that old thing actually left behind an original spirit avatar? Although the Misery Sea holy man knew that Faruq would definitely leave behind a powerful trump card, he never expected that Faruq would leave behind an original spirit avatar. Furthermore, it was an extremely powerful one. The power that this avatar contained was extremely terrifying. It was probably equivalent to 70% of Faruq power or even more. Since you recognize Master's original spirit avatar talisman, you still dare to be so presumptuous? Liu Yu squinted his eyes and said, "It's not too late to regret now." Regret? Impossible. I won't regret it. So what if it's that old thing's original spirit avatar talisman? The Misery Sea holy man said coldly, "Do you really think that he's invincible? If his original body was here, I might be a little wary. However, it's just an avatar. I'm not afraid at all. Since you're so stubborn, I can only kill you." Liu Yu took a deep breath and crushed the talisman. At this moment, a terrifying power appeared in the void. This power was majestic, powerful, and imposing. Following that, a figure appeared. This figure was Faruq. "Misery Sea, you still betrayed us." This person looked at the Misery Sea holy man and took a deep breath. His tone was filled with pity. "Ancient Baron, you old thing. You don't have to be so pretentious." The Misery Sea holy man looked at the avatar of Faruq and squinted his eyes. He was still very fearful. After all, this was Faruq. He was very powerful and could be said to be the most powerful existence in the celestial realm. Back then, no one was his match. Even the great sage could only contend with him. In reality, based on true strength, the great sage might not have been a match for Faruq even at his peak. If not for this, the great sage would not have been suppressed. Even if Faruq used a scheme back then, one had to admit that Faruq was stronger than the great sage. Even if Faruq did not use a scheme and fought the great sage one-on-one, Faruq would not have been at a disadvantage. However, if that was the case, Faruq would have been able to win, but he would have been severely injured and would have fallen into a deep sleep. Unlike now, where there was only a small wound on his body. "Come out, brother Mia." Faruq looked into the depths of the darkness and said, "Ancient Baron, you're still so careful and afraid of death. You don't dare to fight me head-on." Suddenly, a voice echoed out from the depths of the darkness. It was none other than Grand Monarch, Tao Destroyer's voice. It wasn't as sinister and evil as Yang Hongwu had imagined. Instead, it was as bright and open as a spring breeze. Chapter 2170. Tao Destroyer, you're still the same. You want to destroy my world? That's impossible. I won't allow you to do that. Although the existence of this universe is no longer a threat to me, it doesn't matter if you destroy this universe. This is my universe after all, Faruq said. Yang Hongwu and the others had mixed feelings when they heard Faruq words. They didn't expect that this universe, which was dispensable in Faruq eyes, was related to their life and death. If this universe was destroyed, they would all die without a doubt. Yang Hongwu didn't think that he was strong enough to escape when this universe was destroyed. Since the destruction of this universe has no effect on you, why do you have to target me? The great sage looked at Faruq and said, "Why don't you let me go? You're under a lot of pressure in the endless void battlefield, aren't you? If you have my help, you'll be under a lot less pressure." "That's impossible." Faruq shook his head and said, "Don't think that I don't know what kind of relationship you have with those demons. I have nothing to do with them." The great sage narrowed his eyes and continued, "I can sign a contract with you. With your strength, are you afraid that I'll tear up the contract? I'll never ask a tiger for its skin. Give up. No matter what you say, I won't agree to it." Faruq shook his head and said. At this moment, the great sage saw that Faruq was about to make a move and said, "What if I agreed to give you that thing?" Just when the great sage was about to make a move, he suddenly stopped and looked at the great sage with flickering eyes. It was obvious that he was very tempted. At this moment, Lu Yu was very anxious. The great sage continued, "That item is very important to you, isn't it? With that thing, you can get something you want, and if I don't give it to you, you'll never be able to accomplish what you want," he said. "The one thing that I want to accomplish." Furukura Daizuin took a deep breath. His expression was complicated. He looked at the great sage and said, "Okay, I agree. If you give me that thing, I'll let you go." The great sage paused for a moment before pointing at Yang Hongwu and saying, "Of course, but there's also this brat." "That won't do." Furukura Daizuin shook his head. The great sage said, "You'd better think this through clearly. This brat only has a slightly better aptitude. To you, he's not that important." Yang Hongwu was very angry when he heard these two talking about him, as if he was something in their hands, a commodity that could be traded. Lu Yu was very anxious. Although Lu Yu didn't know what they were talking about, one could imagine how important that thing was to her master, Furukura Daizuin. Otherwise, Furukura Daizuin wouldn't have agreed to the great sage's conditions. If Yang Hongwu were to be taken away as well, Yang Hongwu would most likely die. There would be no good ending for him. Yang Hongwu was very important to Lu Yu. She couldn't just watch as Yang Hongwu was taken away. "Master, you can't trust him. He's a demon. You can't trust his words. You can't let him take Yang Hongwu away," Lu Yu said loudly. "Little girl, this matter isn't something you can control. I'm already being very kind to you by not taking you down." The great sage said, "Gu Huang, think carefully. You're just giving up on this brat. There's no loss for you. On the contrary, you'll get something that will be of great help to what you want to do. In fact, you're the one who's profiting." Furukura Daizuin looked at Yang Hongwu and then at Lu Yu. In the end, he sighed and said, "All right, I promise you." With that, he waved his hand and prepared to leave with Lu Yu. However, how could Lu Yu agree to leave just like that? "Master, I misjudged you," Lu Yu said angrily. "I won't leave. I won't be with Yang Hongwu." With that, Lu Yu stood firmly beside Yang Hongwu. At this time, Yang Hongwu smiled. He could see that he had been schemed against. If it wasn't for his special cultivation method, he wouldn't have been able to see through all this. The great sage is indeed worthy of being called a legendary expert. Your strength is terrifying. Yang Hongwu looked at the great sage and said, "Even if you're sealed, you're still so strong. Truly amazing. How did you see through it?" The great sage was surprised. At this time, Lu Yu, Zi Xintong, Zhang Xiushuang, and the others were very surprised by the strange conversation between Yang Hongwu and the great sage. They didn't understand what was going on. "My strength is special. It's just a little bit," Yang Hongwu said. "I was still doubtful at first, but now I'm sure." "Good boy," as expected of his inheritance. The great sage took a deep breath and immediately understood. "What's going on?" Lu Yu asked at this time. Lu Yu wasn't a fool. She understood something, but she wasn't very clear about it. "Look at your trump card," Yang Hongwu said. "How is this possible?" At this time, Lu Yu's eyes widened. She realized that her real spirit incarnation talisman hadn't been used. It was her master Furukura Daizuin's real spirit incarnation talisman. It was still intact and hadn't been used. Then, who was the ancient desolation great sovereign that had just appeared? Illusion, how is this possible? At this time, the entire environment changed. At this time, Yang Hongwu's group and Lu Yu were in an ancient and barren hall. This hall was filled with a violent and ferocious aura. This is all an illusion. How is this possible? Illusion? If this is an illusion, then where's the misery, holy man? Lu Yu took a deep breath. She was shocked. When she entered the illusion demon mountain range, she had already fallen into an illusion. How terrifying was this? Reality and illusion alternated. She couldn't differentiate between reality and illusion. This was too terrifying. The misery, holy man from before was also an illusion. How terrifying was this power? If the great sage wanted to attack her, wouldn't she be unable to fight back? She was now thinking Yang Hongwu. Could the Yang Hongwu in front of her be an illusion as well? Could it be that the great sage had transformed into him? If that was really the case, then he could even know the memories in his heart. That was too terrifying, too terrifying. Yang Hanwu saw through Lu Yu's thoughts. He shook his head and said, I'm real. Zi Xintong and Xiu Shuang are also real. If you want to talk about the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon technique with more like-minded people, you can follow me on WeChat. Talk about life, find friends. Chapter 2171. This is too frightening. I never thought that I would fall into his trap, as expected of a great Tao supremacy. Lu Yu looked at the great sage and couldn't help but comment. In fact, although the illusion was terrifying, it allowed Lu Yu to heave a sigh of relief. If what she had seen and heard before was true, then she really had no way to stop it. Fortunately, it was fake. Only then would they have a chance of survival. She also didn't believe that her master Furukura Daizuan would give up on her and Yang Hanwu. Little fellow, I still underestimated you. Supreme Sovereign Tao Destroyer looked at Yang Hanwu and said, I can't believe that a mere sovereign realm martial artist can resist my illusion. I have to admit that you're really good. You've impressed me, but so what? Your cultivation is still too weak. The misery sea holy man should have really betrayed us, right? Yang Hanwu looked at the great sage. At this moment, although the great sage hadn't really broken the seal, he wasn't far off. At this moment, Yang Hanwu didn't see the misery sea holy man. He believed that the misery sea holy man had really betrayed him. Hearing Yang Hanwu's words, the great sage was once again surprised. You think he's still alive? He's still alive, Yang Hanwu said. In order to keep me here, you actually wanted to help him take over my physical body, right? If you didn't reach an agreement with him, you shouldn't have broken the seal so quickly. Not bad. I like you more and more. Little fellow, how about you pledge your allegiance to me? I could take you in as my disciple. The great sage looked at Yang Hanwu and narrowed his eyes. In this world, my strength is top-notch. Even in ancient times, Huang was inferior. That old thing Huang's strength is inferior to mine as well. If it wasn't for him scheming against me back then, who would have won and who would have lost is still unknown. A loss is a loss. Yang Hanwu shook his head and said, no matter what the reason is, it's just an excuse. As long as you win, it's strength. Hearing Yang Hanwu's words, the great sage froze for a moment before laughing loudly. That's right, a loss is a loss. There's no need to find excuses. Strategy is also a part of strength. The great sage paused for a moment before continuing. However, it's true that I lost last time, but this time, I will definitely win. The great sage was extremely confident. His terrifying aura burst forth, as if the entire world was cheering for him. One had to know that this was the fantasy fiend abyss, the place where Furukura Daizuan sealed the great sage. Here, there was the seal of the Furukura Daizuan. If not for the power of the Furukura Daizuan seal, the great sage would have escaped long ago. Impossible, you must be dreaming. Master has long planned this. Even if misery, sea holy man betrayed you, you can't break out of the seal. Young lady, you think too highly of your master, Lu Yu said coldly. I'm here to complete the mission my master gave me and seal you again. Supreme Sovereign Tao Destroyer chuckled and said, you underestimate me too much. If his true body came here, perhaps I would be a little wary. However, you guys are so weak that I can't even deal with you. I'm interested in fighting. A great Tao supremacy did indeed have the strength to say such words when facing a few martial artists who hadn't even reached the Tao supremacy level. After all, he was powerful enough, even if he hadn't recovered yet and hadn't completely broken out of the seal. If you're really that capable, you wouldn't be talking so much nonsense here. If I'm not wrong, you're just stalling for time, right? Yang Hanwu looked at the great sage and said with a faint smile. Of course, he could tell that although the great sage was powerful enough, his strength was far from his peak due to the restrictions of the seal. The reason why Misery Sea Holy Man hadn't appeared yet was because Misery Sea Holy Man was still trying to break out of the seal. This was because the Misery Sea Holy Master was still trying to break the seal on Supreme Venerate Tao Destroyer's head. After all, it would take time for Supreme Venerate Tao Destroyer's head to be completely unsealed. If Lu Yu released Furukura Daizuen's talisman at this time, the seal would be strengthened and the Great Sage would be sealed once again. If the Great Sage wanted to break out of the seal, it would cost more and more. The price he had to pay for the seal would be even greater, and it would take even more time. This was something he did not want to see. After all, this was the best opportunity because Furukura Daizuen's original body was no longer in this great cosmos. He had already gone to the Endless Void battlefield. If he waited until he returned from an Endless Void battlefield, it would be too difficult for the Great Sage to break out of the seal. Damn it! At this moment, Lu Yu had regained his senses and understood the Great Sage's plan. He was trying to stall for time. It could be said that the Great Sage knew that Lu Yu's existence was a huge threat to him, but he didn't do anything. Instead, he set up an illusion from the start and trapped Lu Yu in it. In fact, he was trying to stall for time so that he would have enough time to break out of the seal left behind by Furukura Daizuen. Seal. However, it was already too late for Lu Yu to regain his senses. The seal left behind by Furukura Daizuen was in imminent danger. The Great Sage, it's impossible for you to break out of the seal. I won't let you do as you wish. The enraged Lu Yu really took out the True Spirit Incarnation talisman left behind by Furukura Daizuen this time. Haha, it's too late, little girl. It's already too late. A mere True Spirit Incarnation is no match for me. If it had been before, the Ancient Desolation's incarnation could have continued to seal me. However, it's no longer possible now. The seal has been torn apart by me. The Great Sage laughed heartily. He didn't fear anyone now, unless Furukura Daizuen's original body descended. However, that was impossible. He had already planned everything out. That great battle in the depths of the Endless Void had also been part of his plan. For the sake of this moment, he had waited for countless years, endured for countless years. So how could he possibly fail? At this moment, Lu Yu had already crushed the True Spirit Incarnation talisman, and Furukura Daizuen's incarnation appeared. Although the Furukura Daizuen in front of him was only an incarnation, the aura it exuded was extremely terrifying. At the same time, the Great Sage's aura was also rising steadily. Compared to Furukura Daizuen's incarnation, it was even more terrifying. It was even more powerful and terrifying. The confrontation between the two powerful auras shook the entire space of the illusory demon abyss as if it was about to collapse. Chapter 2172. It's not enough. Don't waste your energy. Ancient Desolation, you're only an avatar. You can't continue to suppress me. The corners of Grand Monarch Destroyer's mouth curled into a smile as his aura grew more and more terrifying. This overbearing aura suffocated all living beings below the Tao Lord realm in the illusory fiend abyss. Those who were too close simply couldn't withstand this terrifying pressure and were directly crushed to death by this overbearing aura. Damn it! If this continues, the situation won't be good. At this moment, Lu Yu was also very nervous. She could see that the Great Sage's momentum had really been established. She regretted it now. If she had done it earlier, this wouldn't have happened. However, it was too late for regrets now. She could only hope that her master's clone would be able to suppress Supreme, Sovereign Tao Destroyer. Even if he couldn't, he would at least severely injure him. Only then would they have a chance to suppress Supreme, Sovereign Tao Destroyer, and buy some time until Supreme, Sovereign Ancient Desolation's true body returned. If they couldn't do it, the Divine Realm would be lost. Not only that, they wouldn't be able to survive either. Don't worry, we're not at the end of the line yet. The Great Sage may be strong, but it won't be that easy for him to defeat Furukura Daizuen's avatar. Yang Hanwu saw that Lu Yu was about to make a move and couldn't help but move slightly. He gently pressed down on Lu Yu's shoulder and said, but Lu Yu was still very worried. She could see that her master's avatar really couldn't be suppressed. If she didn't make a move now, there wouldn't be a chance. No need. Yang Hongwu shook his head and said, "Your master is stalling for time for us." Who was Furukura Daizuin? He was a peerless powerhouse. It could be said that he was the strongest existence in this great cosmos. How could he not see through Yang Hongwu's scheme? Although Yang Hongwu seemed to be here, he had already begun to make arrangements in the dark. They were formations and restrictions. Yang Hongwu had used the I Chi into 3 pure ones to create a powerful formation in the dark. At the same time, he was trying to repair the original sealing formation. Once the great sage was injured, Yang Hongwu could use the power of the formation to suppress the great sage and seal him again. It was precisely because Furukura Daizuin had seen through Yang Hongwu that he was trying to create an opportunity for Yang Hongwu to stall for time. Of course, he would also think of a way to injure the great sage. In reality, he had already planned this out. If he knew, Grand Monarch Tao Destroyer would definitely break out of his seal. If he had come in person and was willing to pay a certain price, he would have been able to kill the great sage. Even if the great sage could reincarnate and cultivate again, it would take countless years for him to recover and return to his peak. However, Furukura Daizuin didn't do that because it wasn't worth it to him. Furukura Daizuin didn't have enough time or energy to deal with the great sage. The true pressure he needed to face came from the depths of the endless void. It was the battlefield of the endless void. That was the true pressure he had to face. In fact, Supreme Venerate Tao Destroyer had been like him in the beginning. They had both been geniuses born in this universe and had grown to become unparalleled experts in order to resist the invasion of the outer realms in the endless void. However, due to various reasons, the great sage had ultimately fallen to the evil path and become enemies with Furukura Daizuin. Originally, they had been good friends, but now they had become enemies. They had become sworn enemies. It was also because of this that Furukura Daizuin had no choice but to seal the great sage. Because of the great sage, this great cosmos had suffered severe internal friction and suffered a great loss of strength. This had also caused this great cosmos to be at a great disadvantage. Its status among the countless great cosmoses was getting lower and lower. Furthermore, it was already in imminent danger. In the depths of the endless void, there were many powerful great cosmoses that wanted to annex this great cosmos. This was also why Furukura Daizuin had only sent one of his clones to suppress the great sage. In fact, Yang Hongwu and Liu had been brought to this great cosmos from an ancient primeval universe. Just like him, Yang Hongwu and Liu had limitless potential. In particular, Yang Hongwu had the potential to become a universe overlord. What was a universe overlord? They were the masters of the highest planes of the universe in the boundless star fields and the endless void. In fact, Furukura Daizuin also had such potential. However, he hadn't been able to become the true ruler of this great cosmos. If the great sage hadn't schemed against him back then and damaged the great Tao of this great cosmos, he would have become a universe overlord by now. However, the great Tao of this great cosmos was damaged and incomplete, which had led to the current situation. If he had become a universe overlord back then, this great cosmos wouldn't have been in such an awkward situation now. It wouldn't have become the target of the powerful universe overlords in the endless void and the endless star fields. As for all this, Yang Hongwu didn't know. His current strength was far from enough. He was only at the Dominator realm and wasn't even a Tao Lord. He didn't know when he would become a Tao Master, let alone a great Tao Master and a Universe Overlord. What Yang Hongwu needed to do now was to set up the array to suppress and seal the Great Sage. This was the most important thing for him to do now. During the battle between the Great Sage and Furukura Daizuin's clones, the entire space in the illusory demon abyss was destroyed and repaired again and again. This space was very special. The space was destroyed by the power of the battle between the two, but was repaired by the power of the universe space. However, the energy that erupted during this process was quite terrifying. Yang Hongwu, Zi Xintong, Liu Yu, and the others were like small boats in a storm under the impact of this domineering energy. They kept swaying, and seemed to be in danger of being destroyed at any time. At this time, Zi Xintong and Zheng Qiushuang realized how weak their strength was. Even though they had reached the Dao Lord realm, they were still far from a true master. Yang Hongwu was the same. He lamented how weak he was. Even a clone of a great Dao master was so terrifying. What kind of existence would a great Dao master be when he was at his peak? At that level, a single glance would be enough to kill him. It was really terrifying. In the face of such a powerful force, he was really too weak and helpless. This reminded Yang Hongwu of a saying, weak, pitiful, and helpless. Chapter 2173. Damn it, you're a lunatic. At this moment, the great sage was looking at Furukura Daizuin's incarnation. It was so crazy that even the great sage was afraid of it. Although Furukura Daizuin's incarnation was not a match for the great sage, but it was Furukura Daizuin's incarnation that was fighting with his life on the line, which made the great sage feel helpless. In this way, although he could defeat Furukura Daizuin's incarnation in a short time, he would suffer great injuries. It was not worth it for him. He could obviously use his advantage and strength to kill Furukura Daizuin's incarnation without paying too much of a price. However, if Furukura Daizuin attacked so crazily, he could still kill it, but it would take a lot of effort. It was not worth it. However, he had no other choice, because Furukura Daizuin was fighting with his life on the line. What should we do? If this goes on, your master's incarnation will be killed sooner or later. At that time, we won't be able to compete with the great sage. Zi Xintong's expression was very solemn, and so was Zheng Qiushuang, who was beside Yang Hongwu. Husband, do you have a way? Zheng Qiushuang looked at Yang Hongwu and said. In her mind, Yang Hongwu had always been able to devise strategies. Basically, nothing could stop him. She believed that Yang Hongwu would be able to deal with Grand Monarch Dao Exterminator this time. Don't worry. Senior is creating an opportunity for us to stall for time. Yang Hongwu said. Lu Yu wanted to attack, but was stopped by him. This was an opportunity because he knew what was going on. Although he had not seen Furukura Daizuin in person, he already knew when Furukura Daizuin appeared. This expert had already sent him a message when he appeared. He had already seen through his thoughts and was trying his best to cooperate with him. In other words, this was Furukura Daizuin's plan. He had already predicted and calculated everything. Because of this, he only let Lu Yu bring along this incarnation in order to plot against the great sage. Although the great sage was powerful, it was only a part of him. Only his head was left, and this head was still sealed. Even though Misery See Holy Man was frantically trying to open the seal, it was too difficult. Even though there was only a trace of the seal left, the seal could be completely broken as long as it was opened. However, this trace of the seal was like an extremely sturdy steel door that was difficult to tear open. At least, with Misery See Holy Man's power, he would not be able to completely break it within a few hours. Of course, what puzzled Yang Hongwu was that Furukura Daizuin was so powerful. If he paid a higher price and gave Lu Yu 2 talismans, wouldn't it be foolproof? However, Furukura Daizuin did not do so. Furthermore, this incarnation was not particularly powerful. Furthermore, he knew that Lu Yu would definitely be tricked and Misery See Holy Man would definitely betray him. Hence, he did not make any preparations. This made Yang Hongwu puzzled. If this world and this universe were under his control, there was no reason for the great sage to be so arrogant. It seemed like this was a test left behind by Furukura Daizuin. Yes, this was a test. Yang Hongwu took a deep breath. This was a test left behind by Furukura Daizuin. It seemed like this was left behind to deal with him and Lu Yu. What was Furukura Daizuin's purpose? In reality, Yang Hongwu believed that with Furukura Daizuin's power and calculations, he would not leave behind such a flaw. He would not leave behind such a huge threat and such a flaw in his own base. What was his purpose? Yang Hongwu did not know. He could not ask Furukura Daizuin now. However, he would ask sooner or later. Damned ancient wilderness, go to hell. At this moment, the great sage also realized that something was wrong. He was also a great Tao master, and his power was not weaker than Furukuradaisuan's. However, he realized that there was a huge gap between his power and Furukuradaisuan's. He had already discovered that something was wrong with this incarnation of ancient desolation supreme venerate. This incarnation estimated the strength of ancient desolation supreme venerate's original body. Ancient desolation supreme venerate's original body should have the strength to kill this incarnation. But why didn't he do so? What did this mean? It meant that he had been tricked. It meant that Furukuradaisuan did not kill him and even left a flaw in his seal. He deliberately left a flaw so that he could break the seal at this moment. Even misery, see holy man, was a pawn. In order to seal him, how could the cultivator who was sent to guard him and suppress his physical body be so easily tricked and bewitched by him to become one of his men? If he was so easily tricked, would he still be called ancient wilderness? That old thing, ancient desolation, had always been famous for his schemes and schemes. Back then, didn't Master think highly of him because of his unparalleled intelligence? But in fact, he had overlooked one thing, and that was Gu Huang's own strength. Gu Huang's strength had long surpassed his own, but he had deliberately concealed his cultivation. In fact, even when he was defeated in the great battle back then, Gu Huang did not reveal his true strength. It was also because ancient wilderness was too careful and too focused on scheming that Yi Qingyu was able to take advantage of him and destroy the great Tao of this great cosmos. In the end, I was tricked. Tao Destroyer Holy Master smiled bitterly. In fact, as long as ancient desolation placed a seal on the person who was sent to guard his body, the other party would never be judged. Tao Destroyer Holy Master was not as strong as ancient desolation, so it was basically impossible for him to break the seal. However, he managed to break the seal on Bitter Sea Holy Master at this time. Tao Destroyer Holy Master could not help but sigh. That old bastard ancient desolation scheme was too powerful and too terrifying. It was no wonder that old man would make ancient wilderness his successor. However, he would not give up so easily. If ancient wilderness wanted him to be a pawn, he would have to pay the price. As he thought of this, the great sage's eyes flashed with a terrifying cold light. He exploded with all his strength and punched out heavily on Furukuradaisuan's avatar. Furukuradaisuan's body exploded with terrifying energy and collided with the great sage's overbearing punch. Instantly, the entire illusory demon abyss was illuminated. In the illusory demon abyss, many mountains were destroyed by this terrifying impact and turned into endless nothingness. There was no possibility of recovery. Chapter 2174. Do you want me to become this brat's stepping stone? It's not that easy. How can a mere dominator make me his stepping stone? You must be dreaming. The great sage snorted and changed his target. He gave up attacking Furukuradaisuan's avatar and charged toward Yang Hongwu. This sudden change caught even Yang Hongwu a little off guard, let alone the others. Even Furukuradaisuan's avatar was taken aback. He had never expected that the great sage would give up attacking him and turn toward Yang Hongwu. This was not what he wanted to see. Yang Hongwu and Lu Yu were part of his plan from the very beginning. He had been scheming for many years to cultivate Yang Hongwu, who was a variable. He was also the one who had the most potential to become a pinnacle universe overlord. He had never exposed Yang Hongwu because he was too special. His body was very special, and so was his soul. It could be said that Yang Hongwu was one of a kind in this universe. His talent was unparalleled. If the great beings from the outer regions of the universe knew about Yang Hongwu, they would definitely think of ways to kill him. If that happened, all his scheming would be for naught. It could be said that this avatar of his existed in this world of the God domain just to cultivate Yang Hongwu. He wanted to cultivate a universe overlord so that this great universe could occupy a place in the endless void. Be careful. Furukuradaisuan gave a warning. His body transformed into a beam of light and chased after the great sage. His speed was also very fast. He threw a punch. The target of this punch was, of course, the great sage. The power of this punch was very domineering and shocking. Even the great sage would be severely injured if he were to take this punch. He would not be able to fight back. However, the great sage seemed to have given up on defense. He ignored Furukura Daizuen's punch and allowed it to hit him. He himself was still charging toward Yang Hongwu. Yang Hongwu smiled bitterly. The great sage hated him so much that he was willing to risk his life to attack him. He had to admit that his current strength was not enough to compete with the great sage. After all, the great sage was a great Dao master now. Even if he was far from his peak state and only a part of his body was left, he was still very terrifying. Even if there was only a small gap between a great Dao master and a Dao master, there was a world of difference, let alone a great Dao master and a sovereign. There was a gap of 3 large realms between them. This gap was simply impossible to make up. Even if Yang Hongwu was very talented and powerful, he would not be able to do it. However, it was fortunate that Yang Hongwu had already made arrangements and plans. In addition, the formation here was not ordinary. This was originally the place where Furukura Daizuen had sealed the great sage. The formation and restriction here only needed to be slightly rearranged. Coupled with the powerful energy here, it would be enough to activate the formation again. Clang! The moment the great sage appeared in front of Yang Hongwu quickly formed 2 seals with his hands. These 2 seals immediately activated the original sealing formation and restriction. Bam! Just as the great sage's fist was about to hit Yang Hongwu, the entire space exploded with a dazzling light. A light curtain appeared and blocked the great sage's attack, and even sent him flying. On the other side, the attack of Furukura Daizuen's clone had already hit the great sage's body. At this moment, the great sage suffered a huge blow. His entire body seemed to be on the verge of breaking apart. From this, one could see how powerful and domineering Furukura Daizuen's attack was. However, the Tao Destroyer Supreme Venerate did not dissipate after taking this overbearing blow. Although he was seriously injured, it was not a fatal blow to him. On the contrary, the ancient Desolation Supreme Venerate's clone had consumed too much power and did not have enough energy left to maintain it. The entire clone seemed somewhat illusory, and its aura was very weak. It was impossible for it to unleash such a powerful attack again. So, you were also trying to stall for time. The great sage looked at Furukura Daizuen and then at Yang Hongwu. He took a deep breath. He was seriously injured and knew that he no longer had a chance. The formation in this space had been repaired again. Although he could still stand here, he was in fact already sealed in a narrow space and could not leave. Similarly, he could not attack Yang Hongwu. A figure walked out from the darkness and looked at Yang Hongwu. His eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. This figure was none other than the Misery Sea Holy Man. This was the real Misery Sea Holy Man originally. The Misery Sea Holy Man was only a step away from destroying the formation and restriction seal that sealed the Great Sage. Furthermore, he had already released the Great Sage's original body. As long as the formation was completely destroyed, the seal would be completely removed. Then, the Great Sage would be truly free and would be able to do whatever he wanted. He would be invincible in the divine realm, and no one would be able to stop him. Furthermore, at that time, he would be able to obtain the Great Sage's help and directly possess Yang Hongwu. He would be able to obtain a new life and reach a higher level. However, because of Yang Hongwu, all of this was destroyed. He actually repaired the formation and restriction seal in such a short period of time. How could he not be angry? At the beginning, when Furukura Daizuen's avatar appeared, he was very anxious. He was very clear about Furukura Daizuen's strength. He was too strong, so strong that no one could think of resisting him. If not for the fact that the Great Sage was already free to move at that time, he would not have dared to continue. Success had been right in front of his eyes, but everything had been destroyed by Yang Hongwu. He was about to die. and his vitality had reached its end. Even his soul had been infected by the aura of dusk and had withered. This meant that he was about to die, an unavoidable death. Even his soul would not exist, and he would not be able to reincarnate. Misery, see, holy man, I did not expect you to betray me. At this moment, Furukura Daizuin opened his mouth and said, So what? You can't give me what I want. I was about to succeed, but it's all this little b asterisk star's fault. He ruined everything for me. At this moment, the misery, see, holy man burned his remaining life and soul. He exploded with unprecedented power and formed a curse seal. This curse seal instantly locked onto Yang Hongwu. Chapter 2175. Curse Seal, Another Soul Curse Seal. This left Yang Hongwu speechless. The soul curse seal left behind by the misery, see, holy man was different from the previous one. The previous soul curse seal only locked onto his aura and position, allowing others to find his location. However, this soul curse seal was different. It sealed off his path of advancement. Yang Hongwu was furious. He felt that if he couldn't break this soul curse seal, it would mean that he wouldn't be able to advance to the next realm. His cultivation wouldn't be able to advance even a little bit. The curse of breaking path. Liu Yu's expression changed when he saw this soul curse seal. It was too late to stop it. Furukura Daizuin heaved a sigh of relief when he saw this. What's the curse of breaking path? Zi Shintong and the others didn't know what was going on. They looked at Liu Yu and asked. The art of curse was indeed strange, especially when a Tao master used all his strength, including the strength of his flesh, blood, and soul, to curse a person. How powerful and terrifying it was. It was impossible to remove the art of curses without cultivating it. Zheng Xiushuang and Zi Xintong were naturally very worried when they saw that Yang Hongwu was cursed. The curse of breaking path is a very strange and vicious curse. It won't kill anyone, but it can sever one's path of cultivation. The so-called curse of breaking path is to sever one's path of cultivation. Liu Yu explained, Aha, ancient desolation, you've miscalculated. I also know the curse of breaking path. The great sage seemed to have gone mad at this moment. He looked at Yang Hongwu and said, There's the aura of a venerable Tao defiant on him. Not bad. It seems like he's being targeted by that little guy. The great sage was an extraordinary figure, so he had naturally noticed the aura of the Exalt Tao Defiance. In the great sage's opinion, the Exalt Tao Defiance were a junior with boundless prospects, and it was very likely that the Exalt Tao would be able to charge into the Grand Tao realm. Actually, the Exalt Tao Defiant had been a peerless expert in his past life as well. He was a grand exalt of the Tao Defiant, and he was called the Exalt of the Tao Defiant. At that time, the Exalt Tao Defiant was even stronger than the Exalt Tao Defiant. However, some special reasons had caused the Exalt Tao Defiant to perish, and then he reincarnated to become the current Exalt Tao Defiant. So, it wasn't easy for the Exalt Tao Defiant to recover his peak strength from his past life. Now, the great sage was naturally very happy when he noticed the aura of the Exalt Tao Defiance on Yang Hongwu. Obviously, the Exalt Tao Defiance had targeted Yang Hongwu. The Exalt Tao Defiance strength had already arrived at its limits. So long as he was able to find the inheritance of his past life, then he would immediately be able to charge through his current realm of cultivation and become a Grand Tao Exalt. TSK. At that time, Yang Hongwu would definitely not be able to resist. That was something that the great sage was very happy to see. Tao Destroyer, I suggest that you don't act rashly. You don't have a chance. Perhaps you'll be able to see the light of day once more if you're obedient. Furukura Daizuin gazed at the great sage as he spoke. He didn't have the time or the ability to stop the great sage. If the great sage burned his flesh and soul to curse Yang Hongwu like the embittered Sea Taoist had, then the formations and restrictions here wouldn't be able to stop him. You won't be able to stop me. The great sage roared with laughter. I only have a portion of my physical body here. Even if I exhaust it, it's fine. I still have a chance to be reborn. Unless your true body comes, no one will be able to save this kid." With that, the great sage burned a portion of his flesh and soul, leaving only a trace behind. Most of it transformed into a purplish-black cursed seal. This cursed seal was like a purplish-black venomous snake. It instantly broke through the layers of restrictions and entered Yang Hongwu's forehead in the blink of an eye. He didn't even have time to react before the cursed seal entered his body. After the cursed seal entered his body, Yang Hongwu discovered that there was a huge shackle in the depths of his soul. This shackle was originally formed from the embittered Sea Taoist's full power. Now, with the addition of the great sage's power, this shackle was even more secure and stable. It was like a steel cage that suppressed the depths of his soul and made it impossible for him to break out. With the appearance of this shackle, Yang Hongwu was no longer able to sense the power of laws and natural order, not to mention the power of the Great Way. This meant that Yang Hongwu's power was greatly reduced, and there was no possibility of a breakthrough. This left Yang Hongwu speechless. When one's cultivation reached a certain level, it was impossible to increase one's cultivation realm just by absorbing the power of heaven and earth. However, it was fortunate that Yang Hongwu's devouring furnace could still be used. Although the devouring furnace could absorb energy, it couldn't increase Yang Hongwu's cultivation realm. It couldn't allow him to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth, let alone the laws of the Great Way. Without comprehending the laws of the Great Way, it was impossible to enter the Tao Lord realm. The symbol of the Tao Lord realm was comprehending the laws of the Great Way. Without comprehending the laws of the Great Way, it was impossible to enter the Tao Lord realm. Without the Tao, how could a Tao Lord become a Tao Lord? Therefore, the comprehension of the laws of the Great Way was the most crucial. Moreover, without the comprehension of the laws of the Great Way, his inner world, the common people's great world, couldn't be improved. Naturally, his cultivation realm couldn't be improved either. For Yang Hongwu, cultivation was the process of improving his inner world and the common people's great world. As long as he could improve the common people's great world to the level of a heavenly great universe, then his cultivation could reach the level of a universe overlord. However, this wasn't an easy task. Now, Yang Hongwu's common people's great world hadn't reached the level of a great world. It hadn't even reached the level of a heavenly great realm. It hadn't even started to give birth to a small world. So how could it be promoted to a universe? I don't have much time. Yang Hongwu, come here. Farouk Haradaizuan looked at Yang Hongwu and said. Yang Hongwu frowned slightly when he heard this. Yang Hongwu didn't trust this so-called Farouk Haradaizuan that much. He had already been hit by several curse marks. These curse marks had formed an unbreakable shackle in his body. This was the most troublesome thing. If he wanted to achieve anything and improve, he had to break this unbreakable shackle. Although the Farouk Haradaizuan in front of him seemed to have fought with the great sage to protect him, Yang Hongwu knew very well that without him, he wouldn't have fallen to such a state. In the end, the Farouk Haradaizuan was the main culprit. Chapter 2176. It was precisely because of this that Yang Hongwu did not trust Farouk Haradaizuan that much. In fact, Yang Hongwu believed that Farouk Haradaizuan's strength was enough to get rid of the great sage. However, this guy did not do so. Instead, he let Lu Yu and himself handle it, and only sent one of his avatars. In fact, Yang Hongwu had reason to believe that he was cursed by the great sage, and the misery sea holy man Farouk Haradaizuan did it on purpose. Therefore, when Farouk Haradaizuan asked him to go over, Yang Hongwu was not willing. Who knew if this guy would plot against him and attack him? Farouk Haradaizuan seemed to see through Yang Hongwu's thoughts and said, "Don't worry, I won't do you any harm. I'm only an avatar, and I've already used up too much of my energy. I can't do you any harm. Besides, if I wanted to deal with you, I would have done it from the start. Why wait until now?" Hearing this, Lu Yu said, "Awu, Master won't do you any harm. I can guarantee that." Since Lu Yu had already spoken, Yang Hongwu also let go of his worries. After all, Lu Yu was still trustworthy. He did not believe that Lu Yu would plot against him. Furthermore, even if Furukura Daizuin's avatar wanted to deal with him now, it was already impossible. He was only an avatar, and his strength was limited. Furthermore, what he said just now was reasonable. If he wanted to plot against him, he would not have waited until now. Yes, Yang Hongwu took a few steps closer, looked at Furukura Daizuin and said, "Elder, what do you want to say?" When Yang Hongwu came closer, Furukura Daizuin explained, "I can't remove the power of the curse on your body now. Even if my original body was here, it would not be easy to remove the curse mark on your body. I'm only an avatar. I won't be of much help to the power of the curse in your body, but I can help you suppress it temporarily." With that, Furukura Daizuin's body turned into a ray of white light and instantly entered Yang Hongwu's body. Yang Hongwu felt the shackles formed by the curse mark in the depths of his soul shake. The power of the law appeared. This was the power of the great law. Yang Hongwu smiled bitterly inside. That supreme, sovereign, ancient desolation hadn't harmed him, nor had he schemed against him. In fact, he had helped him. That strand of law was something that supreme, sovereign, ancient desolation had used the last of his strength to send into the depths of his soul. The shackles opened a crack and released the power of the law. In other words, he could only mobilize this power of the law. As for the other powers of the law, he could not use them at all. Once he used this power of the law, it would be consumed. However, even so, it was still a great help to him. Although he was unable to break the seal of the curse power and destroy the shackles, he could continue to strengthen the power of the law. Once he was able to do so, he would be able to, once the power of the law was condensed to the extreme, his cultivation could still be improved. Moreover, once he could break the shackles and devour the power of the cursed shackles, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. Relatively speaking, the shackles formed by the power of the curse were a kind of training for him. Although it temporarily blocked his path of breakthrough, once he broke through this obstacle, the path ahead would be bright. Therefore, this was not necessarily a bad thing. However, what Yang Hongwu needed now was great power. After all, he did not know what kind of existence the enemy he was about to face was, and he did not know how strong the enemy was. "Husband, are you okay?" After Yang Hongwu came back to his senses, Zheng Qiushuang hurried over and asked in a worried tone. She looked at Yang Hongwu and asked. For Zheng Qiushuang, Yang Hongwu was the only one in her life. She did not want to see Yang Hongwu suffer any harm. She was willing to exchange her life for his. Yang Hongwu shook his head and said, I'm fine. Although the power of the curse was extremely harmful to him, and it could be said that his strength was not even 1/3 of his peak, Yang Hongwu did not want Zheng Qiushuang and the others to worry. Therefore, he pretended to be calm. However, he had to be careful in the future. Now, what he wanted to do was to completely devour and refine the energy of the demonic insects that Lu Yu had condensed, as well as the huge Tao-grade spiritual vein in the illusory demon abyss. Although he could not cultivate the law of the great path, he could still use the devouring furnace to devour the majestic energy. This energy could not only replenish his inner world, which was the common people's great world, but also greatly improve his physical body. Now, we have found the person we are looking for. We can leave the illusory demon abyss. At this moment, Zi Xintong spoke. In the illusory demon abyss, the misery sea holy man had died, and the great sage had been completely sealed. It could be said that the illusory demon abyss was no longer the illusory demon abyss of the past. Although it was still very dangerous, it was not as terrifying as before. After such a terrifying battle, almost 80% of the illusory demon abyss and the illusory demon mountain range had been destroyed. Of course, it was precisely because of this battle that the illusory demon mountain range and the illusory demon abyss were now in greater danger. This was because the space here had become very unstable and there were many weak spatial cracks. These spatial cracks were directly connected to the endless void. If one was not careful or unlucky and fell into these spatial cracks, it would be extremely dangerous. It could be said that if one was weak and did not comprehend the law of space, entering into the void was impossible. Being trapped in the void was equivalent to being sentenced to death. Of course, Zi Xintong could feel such danger. It was the same for Lu Yu. However, if Lu Yu were to fall into such a spatial crack, she would still be able to escape with her strength. Yes, it's time to leave. It's too dangerous here. Lu Yu also nodded and said, Wu, let's go to my residence first. You can find out what you want to know there. There's no hurry. Yang Hongwu shook his head and said, I'm about to break through. Yang Hongwu had already reached the edge of a breakthrough when he devoured the energy of those demon insects. However, because of the special nature of those demon insects, Yang Hongwu did not directly make a great breakthrough. At this moment, he had to do so. Otherwise, he would not be able to improve the law of the great path in his sea of consciousness in a very short time. Chapter 2177. It's too dangerous to break through here. The space here is extremely unstable. I suggest that we leave this place first. Li said. Zheng Qiushuang and Zi Xintong were also worried after hearing this. After all, the space here was too unstable. Moreover, the heaven and earth spiritual qi here contained demonic thoughts. These demonic thoughts wouldn't pose any threat to Yang Hongwu under normal circumstances. However, this didn't mean that the heaven and earth spiritual qi here couldn't affect him at all. It was very crucial during cultivation. Even the slightest influence could cause a terrible disaster. If Yang Hongwu were to cultivate here, he would be affected by the demonic will and develop a heart demon. It would be very troublesome. Don't worry, I know what to do. Yang Hongwu was very clear about their thoughts. This place was indeed very dangerous, and the space was extremely unstable. However, this was exactly what Yang Hongwu wanted, because the great Tao law in his sea of consciousness was the space law. Therefore, cultivating here would be very helpful for him to comprehend the space law. If he could devour and refine the chaotic space law in this space, he would be able to improve the space law in his sea of consciousness. This was what Yang Hongwu considered. If he left here and cultivated in the outside world, his comprehension and improvement of the space law would definitely not be as good as cultivating here. Therefore, Yang Hongwu had made some preparations and considerations when he cultivated here. Even though there was a certain amount of risk here, in terms of the rewards, the risk was completely worth it. All right, since you've said so, we'll stand guard for you. At this moment, Lu Yu said, since Yang Hongwu had already made up his mind, it wouldn't be good for her to change it. She also believed in Yang Hongwu. If he dared to say and do so, he should have enough confidence. She was very clear about Yang Hongwu's character. Although Yang Hongwu didn't have any great achievements at that time, he had always been a man of his word. Moreover, no matter what he did, he would always consider 3 steps before taking one step. He would never fight a battle that he wasn't confident in. Therefore, even though she knew that this place was very dangerous, she would still support Yang Hongwu's decision since he had already made it. Of course, Zheng Qiushuang also supported Yang Hongwu. She would unconditionally choose to trust Yang Hongwu no matter what he said. It's okay. The space here is unstable. When I cultivate, it will cause turbulence in the space. It's very dangerous for you, so it's best for you to leave here first. Yang Hongwu shook his head and said, indeed, when he cultivated, he would devour the space law here. Once he devoured the space law and the power of space here, the space here would become even more unstable. Once he devoured too much of the power of the space law, this side of the world, this side of the space, may directly collapse. In that case, it would be too dangerous for Zheng Qiushuang and the others to stay here. Once they fell into the space crack and were pulled into the endless void, he didn't have enough confidence to save them. No, I won't leave. I'll stay here to protect you. Zheng Qiushuang shook her head and said, if something happens to you, I won't live alone. At this moment, Zheng Qiushuang's eyes were filled with determination. Zi Xintong and Lu Yu looked at each other and saw the determination in each other's eyes. Lu Yu said, "Let's all stay here. If anything happens here, I can still help you. Although my strength hasn't reached the Dao Master Realm, I'm able to contend with the Dao Master Realm warrior." Looking at the expressions of the three women, Yang Hongwu thought for a moment and estimated that it was impossible for him to let the three women leave. Therefore, he said, "Well, since all of you are staying, I'll first set up a formation. This formation can protect all of you. As long as nothing happens to me, nothing will happen to you." After a pause, Yang Hongwu added, "However, you can't leave the formation I set up. Otherwise, I won't be able to protect your safety." Hearing Yang Hongwu's words, the three women nodded. To Lu Yu, she was the strongest. Although she believed that she was much stronger than Yang Hongwu, if she couldn't protect herself, Yang Hongwu definitely couldn't protect her. However, since Yang Hongwu had said so, she couldn't refute him. Otherwise, it would hurt Yang Hongwu's self-esteem. In fact, what she didn't know was that Yang Hongwu's attainments and formations were very strong. Moreover, the formation he was going to set up this time was to use his own inner world, which was the common people's great world and the great seal of the common people's great seal as the core of the formation. Once this spatial world collapsed, then this formation would directly teleport the three women into the common people's great world. Of course, the three women were very strong. The weakest, Zheng Qiushuang, was already at the Dao Lord realm. For Yang Hongwu, whose cultivation was only at the sovereign realm, if three Dao Lord experts entered, it might pose a huge threat to the common people's great world. It might even cause the laws of the common people's great world to collapse. However, if it really reached that stage, Yang Hongwu couldn't care less. At least they would be fine. That would cause considerable damage to his inner world. However, this loss could still be made up. After the three women nodded in agreement, Yang Hongwu began to set up the formation. His hands kept forming seals, and rays of light kept flashing. In the sky, a huge seal appeared. This huge seal contained boundless power of the common people. This was the great seal of common people. Although the great seal of common people was still incomplete, the power it contained was already very terrifying and powerful. If it was at its peak and Yang Hongwu's strength was a little stronger, with the help of the great seal of common people, Yang Hongwu would be able to contend with experts at the Dao Master Realm. However, Yang Hongwu's current cultivation was too low. He was still far from being able to display the strongest state of the great seal of common people. Of course, if Yang Hongwu integrated the entire common people's divine realm into the great seal of common people's great world, then his strength would really break through and reach the Dao Lord realm. At that time, if he used the great seal of common people again, he would definitely be able to erupt with power comparable to that of a Dao Master expert. He could really prove that he could contend with experts at the Dao Master realm and even kill them. What a rich power of the common people. What a strong world power. When Lu Yu saw Yang Hongwu use the great seal of common people, she knew this point. She was very surprised. Yang Hongwu's source world, this was definitely his source world. Although his current inner world hadn't really reached the level of the divine realm, it was no small matter. As long as there were enough resources, his world could be upgraded. Chapter 2178. This is a formation with the world as the core of the formation. At this time, Zi Xintong also realized that the formation arranged by Yang Hongwu was using his world as the core to suppress the formation. Once this formation was broken, it would cause great damage to Yang Hongwu's inner world. She knew. Lu, you also knew. Zheng Qiushuang also knew. The three women were very moved. Apart from being moved, they also felt a little regretful. If something really happened, the first to be injured would definitely be Yang Hongwu. Once his inner world was damaged, the injuries caused would be very serious. However, at this time, it was too late to regret. At this moment, Yang Hongwu had already finished arranging the formation, and he had already entered a state of cultivation. They saw Yang Hongwu sitting cross-legged in the middle of the formation. The surrounding heaven and earthling qi madly swarmed towards Yang Hongwu's position. Terrifying energy fluctuations erupted from Yang Hongwu's body. His whole body's aura was constantly rising, becoming more and more terrifying. An ancient and majestic furnace appeared above his head, continuously swallowing the surrounding heaven and earthling qi into the furnace. An incomparably bright red lotus wrapped around Yang Hongwu's body. The surrounding heaven and earthling qi contained in the heaven and earthling qi was burned by the flames emitted by this lotus, eliminating it. This was the red lotus of karmic fire. Although Lien still hadn't awakened, Yang Hongwu could borrow her power to refine the heaven and earthling qi contained in the heaven and earthling qi. In this way, not only would it be of great help to Yang Hongwu, but it would also be of great help to the fire lotus. This was because the fire lotus had been sleeping for a long time. Because when Yang Hongwu used the karmic fire of the red lotus, the fire lotus was constantly swallowing the energy and obtaining a great improvement. The space is beginning to fluctuate. He is actually swallowing the power of space here. At this time, Lu Yu discovered that Yang Hongwu was not only swallowing the heaven and earthling qi here, but also the power of space here. This seemed to be Yang Hongwu's real purpose. If this continued, Yang Hongwu would devour all the spatial energy here, which might cause the space here to become more and more unstable. It might even cause the space here to collapse. It was precisely because of this that Lu Yu became more and more worried at this time. If the space collapsed, although she was strong enough, she couldn't stop it, and she couldn't protect so many people. If it was really a last resort, she would choose to protect Yang Hongwu. As for Zheng Qiushuang and Zi Xintong, it would depend on their luck. After all, in Lu Yu's heart, Yang Hongwu was the first. As for Zheng Qiushuang and Zi Xintong, it was her fault for underestimating them. As a modern person, Lu Yu was also a transmigrator. Even if she was here and had been influenced by this world, she couldn't change her mind. Even if her concept of monogamy had changed, it wouldn't change completely. In her heart, she was still a little dissatisfied with Yang Hongwu's situation of having a group of wives. Even if there was a special reason, because of Yang Hongwu's special physique and cultivation technique, she couldn't completely let go of the grudge in her heart. As time passed, the space in the illusory demon abyss became more and more unstable, and the devouring power of the devouring furnace above Yang Hongwu's head became more and more amazing. The surrounding heaven and earthling qi and the power of space were constantly being swallowed. The furnace seemed to be a bottomless pit, as if no matter how much energy there was, it couldn't be filled. The more they looked, the more shocked and worried Lu Yu and the other two women became. Could he completely refine so much energy? If he couldn't completely refine it, if this continued, perhaps before this space collapsed, his entire body would explode. Once he exploded, it wouldn't just be his physical body that would explode, but his soul would also collapse. That would be equivalent to dying, and he wouldn't even be able to reincarnate. However, Lu Yu and Zheng Qiushuang still trusted Yang Hongwu. They understood Yang Hongwu's character, and so did Zi Xintong. Even if they trusted him, they couldn't help but worry. After all, this man occupied a very important position in their hearts. While Yang Hongwu was crazily refining the energy, including the energy of the demonic insects, his cultivation had already risen to a limit. However, because of the huge shackle in his soul's sea of consciousness, no matter how much energy Yang Hongwu devoured, he couldn't break through the bottleneck and raise his cultivation realm. These energies were crazily merged into the common people's great world and his physical body by Yang Hongwu, constantly increasing the strength of his physical body. His immortal dragon body was raised to the limit. The common people's great world was also constantly improving. However, the source of this world didn't undergo any qualitative changes. Although the spiritual energy of heaven and earth became denser, It didn't undergo any qualitative changes, and the laws didn't undergo any qualitative changes. For a world, if it wanted to undergo a huge improvement, it needed a qualitative change, an increase in the laws. Only then would it be a true evolution. Obviously, although the energy of the common people's great world had increased and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth became denser, the laws didn't undergo a qualitative change, and the world wouldn't rise to a higher level. Break for me. Yang Hanwu let out a furious roar. His entire body trembled as he began to transform. His body began to grow. 3 feet, 5 feet, 9 feet, 15 feet. In an instant, Yang Hanwu had turned into a giant. His fleshly body had reached its limit, but the devouring power continued to increase. As a result, Yang Hongwu's fleshly body began to grow. Seeing Yang Hongwu grow bigger and bigger, Lu Yu and the other 2 girls became more and more worried. They were very clear that the reason why their physical bodies were growing like this was because they had devoured too much energy. These energies weren't completely refined and didn't truly merge into their bodies. They weren't able to control them, which led to such a situation. Of course, if it was a heaven and earth dharma, then it was a different story. We can't go on like this. We have to think of a way to help Yang Hongwu. At this moment, Zi Xintong said to Lu Yu and Zheng Qiushuang, "Wait a little longer. I believe in him." At this moment, Lu Yu shook her head. She could see that if Yang Hongwu really couldn't control it, he would say it. Since he didn't have any intention of asking for help, it proved that he could still control it. This was within her expectations. "I believe my husband can do it," Zheng Qiushuang said with a firm tone. The 3 girls were very nervous, and they stared at Yang Hongwu. At this moment, waves of fluctuations appeared in the void. At this moment, the 3 girls felt the fluctuations in the void, and their faces turned ugly. An external force had appeared. Was it a friend or a foe? Chapter 2179. We absolutely cannot allow them to disturb my husband. At this moment, Zheng Qiushuang's eyes flickered with a cold light. She knew that Yang Hongwu should be at a critical moment in his cultivation. Once he was disturbed, he would most likely suffer a great backlash. Lu Yu nodded. She was the strongest, so of course she knew very well. However, this formation was set up by Yang Hongwu. He had set up restrictions. Without Yang Hongwu opening the formation, they would not be able to leave. If they forcibly opened the formation, it would also affect Yang Hongwu. Let's wait and see. We cannot leave the formation set up by Al Wu. If we forcibly leave, Al Wu may be injured. Lu Yu said. Moreover, Al Wu should be aware of the situation. We should wait for a while. If the other party really comes with ill intentions, then we will act. That's right. Zi Xintong nodded. Sister Yu is right. Zi Xintong understood. She could see that Lu Yu held a very high position in Yang Hongwu's heart. Moreover, Lu Yu's strength was also very valiant. Her origin was also very extraordinary. It was precisely because of this that Zi Xintong was willing to call Lu Yu elder sister. She was a smart person. As for Zheng Qiushuang, she did not care about any of this. She had already let go of everything. As long as Yang Hongwu had her in his heart, everything was enough. She also understood that Yang Hongwu would not give up on any of them. If it was in the past, perhaps she would still fight for it. However, after experiencing the separation of life and death, she no longer had such thoughts. As long as she could be together with Yang Hongwu, as long as she could always be by his side, everything else was already enough. Nothing else was important. At this moment, he was indeed at a critical moment in his cultivation. He had already begun to condense that one strand of nomological law. That strand of nomological law was becoming more and more powerful as it continued to devour the surrounding nomological law. However, although that strand of nomological law was being condensed, its speed was not fast. If it was not for the existence of the cursed shackles, Yang Hongwu's speed of condensing nomological law would be much, much faster. However, compared to before, it could be said to be a world of difference. The disparity was too great, and they could not be mentioned in the same breath. This speed made Yang Hongwu very depressed, but there was nothing he could do. He could only condense it bit by bit. Outside the array formation, Yang Hongwu naturally felt the spatial fluctuations. Yang Hongwu was cultivating the law of space, so he was very sensitive to spatial fluctuations. The moment the other party appeared, Yang Hongwu had already sensed it. The spatial energy of the illusory demon abyss was constantly being devoured by him, causing the space of the illusory demon abyss to continuously absorb the spatial energy of the endless void. As a result, the spatial origin of this world fluctuated, and experts from other worlds sensed it. Yang Hongwu didn't know why they were here, but he was sure that they didn't have any good intentions towards Yang Hongwu. Although they might not be enemies, they were definitely not friends. They were probably here to hunt for treasures. On the other hand, Yang Hongwu didn't want to see exalted Dao Defiance the most. He hoped that they weren't on the side of the exalted Dao Defiance. If they were, then it would definitely be a fierce battle, and only one of them would be able to survive. It could be said that he'd become the obsession of the exalted Dao Defiance, or perhaps it could be said that he was obstructing the exalted Dao Defiance from attaining the Dao. Only by killing Yang Hongwu would the exalted Dao Defiance be able to attain the Dao and break through. So, Yang Hongwu didn't want to see the exalted Dao Defiance or the people of the exalted Dao Defiance. A rift appeared in space. 3 people walked out from within the rift. They wore golden Taoist robes that had a leaf embroidered on them. It was the leaf of the ancient golden tree. The ancient golden tree was one of the spirit roots of the primeval times. It was extremely powerful and could compare with the primeval world tree. There was only one sect that used the leaf of the ancient golden tree as a symbol, the ancient spirit Tao sect. It was rumored that the ancient spirit Tao sect's old ancestor was an ancient golden tree. It had been a long time since the ancient spirit Tao sect had appeared in the myriad worlds. Who would have thought that someone from the ancient spirit Tao sect would actually appear here? This was very surprising. This is troublesome, Lu Yu said. She had only heard of the ancient spirit Tao sect, but now that she saw them, she could recognize them. The people of the ancient spirit Tao sect were extremely domineering. So, they were probably enemies and not friends. Who are these people? Zi Xintong looked at Lu Yu and asked. She didn't know these people. The ancient spirit Tao sect was only recorded in the upper world. It was rumored that Zi Xintong hadn't been to the ancient divine domain, so she naturally didn't know about the existence of the ancient spirit Tao sect. However, from the looks of it, the 3 of them weren't weak, but they couldn't be very powerful either. If the 3 of them joined hands, they might be able to deal with them. However, after hearing Lu Yu's words, Zi Xintong still asked. After all, since Lu Yu said so, it meant that these people weren't simple and weren't to be trifled with. After all, no opponent, no enemy could be underestimated. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy would you be able to win 100 battles. Zi Xintong deeply understood this point. She had experienced too many things in the demon domain. Moreover, she had seen too many cruel things in her inherited memories. So, she didn't dare to take any risks. If I'm not wrong, these people are from the ancient spirit Tao sect. Lu Yu explained. I've seen in the ancient books that the disciples of the ancient spirit Tao sect use the leaf of the ancient golden tree as the symbol of their sect. The robes of these 3 people are embroidered with the leaf of the ancient golden tree. So, this should be from the ancient spirit Tao sect. Ancient spirit Tao sect? Zheng Qiushuang asked. What sect is that? I've never heard of it in the divine domain. How strong are they? The ancient spirit Tao sect is very strong. They haven't appeared in the divine domain for a long time. Rumor has it that the ancient spirit Tao sect has entered the depths of the endless void and established their own universe. The ancient golden tree is already a universe overlord. As for whether it's true or not, no one knows. Lu Yu shook his head and said. He looked at the 3 people with a solemn expression. They're that strong? Hearing Lu Yu's words, Zi Xintong and Zheng Qiushuang's expressions became very serious. They felt as if a great battle was about to happen. Ancient Spirit Tao Sect? At this moment, a voice sounded. It was Yang Hongwu. He had already stood up. Ah Wu, you finished cultivating? Lu Yu was pleasantly surprised when he saw Yang Hongwu. However, when he turned his head, he realized that Yang Hongwu was still cultivating. It seemed like this was just a clone. 1 qi into 3 pure ones. Lu Yu continued. I didn't expect your 1 qi into 3 pure ones to have reached such a level. Chapter 2180. Yang Hongwu smiled and said, It's nothing. It's just a small trick. In Yang Hongwu's view, the I Chi into Trinity secret technique was just a small trick. The real secret techniques and divine powers were not these. Only when one's strength reached a certain level, there was no need for the so-called incarnation. Even a strand of hair could transform into a peerless expert. It could even evolve into a world or a universe. That was the real power. Yang Hongwu's current strength was far from enough. In fact, only the weak needed the so-called divine powers and secret techniques. The real experts did not need to do anything. They only needed to stand there, and they would be invincible. That was the real invincibility. Husband, these 3 people have come with ill intentions. How should we deal with them? At this time, Zheng Qiushuang asked with a worried tone. They're just clowns, not worth mentioning. Although Yang Hongwu was a little apprehensive, he still said it out loud. He did not want Zheng Qiushuang to worry. In fact, although the strength of these 3 people was not bad, Yang Hongwu really did not put them in his eyes. What he was worried about was whether the space in the illusory demon abyss could withstand it. If the space completely collapsed because of his crazy devouring of space origin, it would be really troublesome. For the 3 of them to be able to appear here, it must have been because they had sensed the fluctuation of space. Yang Hongwu sensed the aura of a space treasure from the leader. It was definitely a space attribute treasure of creation. If he could kill him and seize that space attribute treasure of creation, it would be of great help to him. He could even condense the space Great Tao principle in his sea of consciousness and form a real space Great Tao. Don't be careless. At this moment, Lu Yu said, these 3 are disciples of the ancient Spirit Tao sect. They don't seem strong, but they have many powerful treasures. It's said that the disciples of the ancient Spirit Tao sect are blessed by the ancient golden tree and contain a strand of the ancient golden tree's consciousness. Once they are in a life or death situation, they will activate the power of the ancient golden tree. Therefore, few people are willing to provoke the disciples of the ancient Spirit Tao sect. The ancient Spirit Tao sect, a sect that has been lost for a long time. Yang Hongwu did not care when he heard this. He said, although they are strong, I am not afraid. There are 2 things on them that are of great help to me. At this moment, Yang Hongwu not only sensed a space elemental supreme treasure of creation among the 3, but he also sensed a very strong vitality. This vitality should be a type of spiritual root of creation. In fact, Yang Hongwu's longevity ancient tree and divine tree of creation were both spiritual roots of creation. If he could snatch the spiritual roots of creation from the 3 of them, the divine tree of creation and the longevity ancient tree Nini would be able to reach a higher level. In Yang Hongwu's mind, some memories of the ancient Spirit Tao sect appeared. Yang Hongwu didn't like the ancient Spirit Tao sect. He even loathed it, a loathing that came from the depths of his soul. Yang Hongwu knew that his relationship with the ancient Spirit Tao sect in his previous life was not shallow. However, they were enemies, not friends. Therefore, Yang Hongwu had a loathing for the ancient Spirit Tao sect. This loathing made Yang Hongwu very uncomfortable. This meant that the memories of his previous life could affect him, and it was getting stronger and stronger. From the memories, Yang Hongwu knew a lot about the ancient Spirit Tao sect. The ancient Spirit Tao sect was indeed very strong. Moreover, the old antique of the ancient Spirit Tao sect, the ancient golden tree, was very strong. In the memories, he was only half a step away from crossing the threshold and entering a very terrifying realm. That was the legendary overlord of the universe. If that guy was here, this world wouldn't be able to withstand it. If it was just a clone, it was possible. However, the ancient spirit Dao sect had already left the divine realm. Now that they were here, they should be looking for something. Or they might have accidentally entered this place. Yang Hanwu didn't think that they knew of his existence. If they had a way to know of his existence, they might have appeared long ago. Why would they wait until now? Moreover, his soul and consciousness had been sealed by the power of the curse. It was difficult for them to discover him. Therefore, Yang Hanwu didn't think that these disciples of the ancient spirit Dao sect had chased after him because of the spiritual aura of his previous life. I didn't expect that there would be such an expert in this world. The leader of the 3 people from the ancient spirit Dao sect was a young sect master called Huang Jinyuan. He had the bloodline inheritance of the ancient golden tree in his body and the sky-piercing escape tool in his hand. This was the spatial attribute supreme treasure of fortune that Yang Hongwu wanted. In his inner world, there was a sapling of the ancient golden tree. It was nurtured by his bloodline power. This showed how high his status in the ancient spirit Dao sect was. This time, he had entered the All Heavens sacred realm to search for something left behind by the ancient golden tree. It was a branch of the ancient golden tree. I don't care who you are. Leave now. Li said, "You want us to leave?" Mui laughed and said loudly, "What a joke. Young sect master, this woman wants us to leave? Looks like she doesn't know how strong we are. What do you know? This is just a small world. How could mere natives know about the prestige of the ancient spirit Dao sect? They don't even have the right to know. Therefore, it's normal that they don't know how strong we are." Mu Yin said mockingly. "Mu Yin, do you want to fight me?" Mui said angrily. Although the 2 of them were brothers, they didn't get along and were always at odds with each other. "Let's fight. Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Mu Yin looked at him coldly and said, "After so many years, your strength hasn't improved at all. It's easy for me to kill you." "All right, shut up." At this moment, Huang Jinyuan was also a little angry. These 2 brothers were extremely talented and were his most capable subordinates. However, these 2 fellas were always at odds with each other. Under normal circumstances, he would not bring both of them out at the same time. However, it was different this time. The matter of searching for the ancestors' branch could not be exposed, not even to the inner circle of the sect. Because of this, he could only bring his 2 most trusted subordinates, Mu Yin and Mu He. For the sake of the young sect master, you'll die here today," Mu Yin said coldly. "You're lucky." Chapter 2181. Ignorance is Bliss. I'll give you all one more chance. Huang Jinyuan looked at Lu Yu, Yang Hongwu, and the others. Lu Yu was one of the most outstanding geniuses that Huang Jinyuan had ever seen. She was definitely young, but her cultivation had already reached such a terrifying level. Moreover, this was still the lower realm, and she was only a native of the lower realm. She was actually able to cultivate to such a level without the support of sufficient resources. From this, one could see how terrifying her talent was, and how terrifying it was. She had the potential to become a universe overlord. If such a genius was placed in the endless void, she would be the target of all the great cosmoses. Of course, she would also be hunted down by all the great cosmoses. After all, no one wanted to see their opponent have such a terrifying genius. They also didn't want their opponent to have another universe overlord. Therefore, the great beings of all the great cosmoses attached great importance to such a genius. If she wasn't one of their own, then she was an enemy. Generally speaking, the great cosmoses would use all sorts of methods to protect their own geniuses. Of course, the great beings of the great cosmoses would also use all sorts of methods to deal with the geniuses of their enemies. If they could bring such a genius into the ancient spirit Dao sect, then the strength of the ancient spirit Dao sect would increase tremendously. Of course, if this woman before him was unwilling to become a disciple of the ancient spirit Dao sect, if she was unwilling to join them, then he would have to kill her. Otherwise, if such a genius were to become an enemy, then it would be an enormous test for the ancient spirit Tao sect. However, Huang Jinyuan suddenly regretted his decision. If this woman joined the ancient spirit Tao sect, then his status would be severely affected. His current level of cultivation wasn't far from this woman's, but there was one thing that he couldn't compare to. This woman had cultivated to such a level in the lower domain without sufficient resources. It could be said that her talent was much stronger than Huang Jinyuan's. Once she joined the ancient spirit Tao sect, would he still have any status left? Would he be able to keep his position as the young master of the ancient spirit Tao sect? Therefore, if Lu Yu agreed to his request now, he would have a hard time dealing with it. If you don't leave, you'll die. Since Lu Yu knew that Yang Hongwu wanted to obtain the 2 items from the guy in front of him, how could he let them go? Therefore, it was just a casual remark. Even if they retreated now, Lu Yu would find a way to attack them, even if they were really strong. Die! Mu Yin couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. Young master, this woman wants us to die? In my opinion, we should capture her alive, seal her cultivation, and cultivate her into the lowest slave. Hearing this, Lu Yu's eyes flashed coldly. Yang Hongwu was also burning with rage at this moment. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Yang Hongwu harumphed coldly. He turned into a ray of light and charged towards Mu Yin. This guy should be killed for talking nonsense. The moment Yang Hongwu moved, the expressions of Huang Jinyuan and the other 2 changed drastically. This guy's cultivation was only at the ruler realm, but they didn't expect Yang Hongwu to be so terrifying and powerful. They had never seen such a person in the ancient spirit Tao sect before. He could unleash such powerful combat strength with his ruler realm cultivation. He was strong enough to fight against a peak Tao lord or even a Tao master. How terrifying was his talent? If he was allowed to grow, it would be unimaginable. As long as his cultivation reached the Tao master realm, he would be able to fight against a great Tao master. If he was nurtured to the great Tao master realm, wouldn't it mean that he would be able to fight against a universe overlord? Terrifying, too terrifying. This person couldn't be allowed to live. He was even more terrifying and powerful than that female genius. He didn't expect to meet such terrifying geniuses just by coming to the lower realm to look for the Patriarch's branch. For Huang Jinyuan, this was a huge opportunity. If he could kill the 2 of them, devour their bloodline power, and refine their fortunes, then his fortune, strength, and bloodline would rise to the next level. At the thought of this, Huang Jinyuan's eyes shone brightly. Catch him, he shouted. Mu Yin and the other 2 attacked. Although they were enemies and clashed with each other from time to time, they wouldn't drop the ball at critical moments. They wouldn't ruin Huang Jinyuan's plan. At this moment, the 2 of them moved. They unleashed a powerful force and charged towards Yang Hongwu. However, just as the 2 of them were about to attack Yang Hongwu stopped. A barrier appeared in front of him. This barrier blocked the 2 of them. However, the saber in Yang Hongwu's hand tore through space and slashed towards the 2 of them. The saber was filled with boundless spatial power. It instantly slashed Mu Yin's body. Mu Yin was caught off guard. He groaned and was pushed back a few hundred feet. Mu didn't have it easy either. Yang Hongwu's attack was aimed at Mu Yin. However, Mu was also hit by the residual power and was sent flying a few feet away. Huang Jinyuan's face was ashen. As the young sect master of the ancient spirit Tao sect, he was naturally knowledgeable. His cultivation had reached the Tao master realm. In the endless void and various universes, the ancient spirit Tao sect universe was not a top-notch universe, and the ancient spirit Tao sect was not a top-notch sect. However, the strength of the ancient spirit Tao sect was unquestionable. Given his high status, he was naturally knowledgeable. The formation set up by the young man in front of him was extremely powerful. It wouldn't be easy for him to break the formation. At least, he wouldn't be able to break the formation in a short period of time. Most importantly, this formation had already trapped them within. This meant that if they wanted to leave, they had to break the formation. The 4 people in front of him were natives from the lower world. Yet, They wanted to keep them here and kill them. This made him very angry. However, even though he was furious, he did not dare to be careless. This lad was only a sovereign, but he was already so strong. He must have some sort of powerful trump card behind him. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be so strong. Trash. Huang Jinyuan looked at Mu Lian and Mu He. Although the two of them were his right-hand men, he never expected that they wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand against the natives from the lower world. This made him very angry. Even though he knew that the natives in front of him were powerful and it wasn't their fault, he was still angry. Chapter 2182. Mu Lian and Mu He's eyes turned red when they heard their master call them trash. They were like raging bulls and couldn't take it anymore. The two of them could be considered top geniuses in the entire ancient spirit Tao sect. However, they had never imagined that they would be suppressed by a mere sovereign realm native in the lower realm with their young master. They couldn't even defeat a mere sovereign realm martial artist. Shameful, too shameful. They had to kill this native to wash away this humiliation. The two of them were like wolves and tigers. After getting up, they charged towards Yang Hongwu again like rabid dogs. However, even though the two of them were crazy this time, they were still very cautious and didn't dare to be as impudent as before. The invisible defensive force from before had already given them a huge impact. Therefore, this time, it was impossible for them to be unprepared like before. Mu Yin and Mu He exchanged glances and drew their weapons at the same time. When they were about to reach Yang Hongwu, the two of them launched their attacks. Two powerful forces, one black and one white, gathered together and attacked Yang Hongwu in an instant. If there was still a formation blocking it like before, then the two of them should be able to tear it apart. However, if there was no formation and restriction, then the damn native would die without a doubt. A mere sovereign realm native couldn't possibly withstand their combined attack. The two of them were only Tao lords, but they had cultivated a combination attack technique. Their combined attack wasn't as simple as 1+1. The power of their combined attack was comparable to that of a Tao sovereign expert. The two of them looked at the direction of the two black and white forces. It was as if they could see Yang Hongwu's death. However, the scene that unfolded in the next moment left the two of them dumbfounded. Something that they had never imagined had happened. An ancient and huge cauldron appeared around Yang Hongwu. After the cauldron appeared, it exploded with dazzling light and formed a huge vortex. This huge vortex formed a terrifying devouring power. In an instant, it devoured the energy of their strongest attack without causing any ripples. Mu He and Mu Lian weren't the only ones who were dumbfounded. Huang Jinyuan was also shocked. Secret divine ability. This was a supreme, secret divine ability. It could be a great Tao divine ability. Moreover, it was the rarest and most powerful devouring divine ability. The devouring great Tao was the most mysterious and terrifying great Tao among the countless great Taos. The only great Taos that could be compared to it were time, space, life, and death. Furthermore, the devouring great Tao was the most bizarre and had the most terrifying potential. It was rumored that the most powerful devouring great Tao could devour and fuse with other great Taos. If the devouring great Tao was cultivated to a certain extent, it could completely devour an endless universe. It could devour all the other great Taos and great universes in the endless void. No one could be sure about this. However, based on the rumors, one could tell how terrifying the devouring great Tao was. Once someone who possessed the devouring great Tao appeared, they would definitely be hunted down by all the great universes. They wouldn't be willing to nurture a martialist who possessed the devouring great Tao. After all, if someone who possessed the devouring great Tao lost control of the devouring great Tao, or if they cultivated to a certain extent and could no longer improve, they might lose control and devour any universe to increase their cultivation and strengthen the devouring great Tao. Therefore, people who cultivated the devouring great Tao were truly enemies of the entire world. However, as long as they didn't expose their devouring great Tao before they matured, they would be able to grow without limit and would be invincible. At the thought of this, Huang Jinjuan's eyes sparkled with greed. He licked his lips. This was an opportunity, a huge opportunity for him, the golden origin. Compared to the devouring Tao, the branches of the ancient golden tree and the ancient inheritance couldn't even be mentioned in the same breath. As long as he could obtain the inheritance of the devouring Tao, he would be able to use the devouring Tao to increase his strength without limit. By then, he would be able to grow into a truly invincible overlord. The endless void and the 10 overlords of the universe would all be nothing but nourishment for him to improve his cultivation. He glanced at Mu He and Mu Lian. Then, he looked at Yang Hongwu and the other 3. He had already made up his mind. Today, everyone here would die, including his 2 trusted aides, Mu He and Mu Lian. He had to seize the devouring great Tao, and he definitely couldn't expose it. In fact, he was aware of Mu He and Mu Lian's loyalty. As their master, he had already left secret techniques on the 2 of them that could control their life and death. The 2 of them would never betray him. Even so, Huang Jinwan didn't want the 2 of them to live. This was because the devouring great Tao was too important. Even though he knew that the 2 of them would never betray him, he couldn't take the risk of the devouring great Tao being exposed. This was because once the devouring great Tao was exposed, it would definitely be a huge threat to him. In the face of those terrifying great beings, those great Tao Knights, and even universe overlords, he wouldn't have any strength left to resist. Therefore, no matter what, everyone here had to die today. They definitely couldn't live. Of course, to him, the most important thing now was to capture this aboriginal who possessed the devouring great Tao. He couldn't let him escape. As such, Mu He and Mu Lian were actually the best cannon fodder. Although this aboriginal's cultivation was only at the Dominator realm, since he was able to gain the recognition of the supreme devouring great Tao and become its master, how could it be so simple? It was very normal for such a cultivator to be able to challenge those of a higher realm. If a cultivator who possessed the devouring great Tao was so easily killed, that would be really strange. Mu He, Mu Lian, hurry up and take down that aboriginal. Remember, I want him alive. Huang Jinwan shouted loudly. Upon hearing their young master's command, Mu He and Mu Lian did not dare to act rashly. Although the 2 of them did not know how frightening the devouring great Tao was, they knew very well that the aborigine before them was not easy to deal with. Their most powerful attacks from earlier had been easily neutralized by the aborigine before them. This aborigine was most definitely in possession of an extremely powerful treasure. Perhaps that enormous furnace was that supreme treasure. Chapter 2183. When Mu Lian and Mu He saw the giant furnace, they were very envious and wanted to get it. After all, it was a powerful supreme treasure of the creation realm. They did not have such a powerful treasure. Although they wanted it, they knew that such a treasure would never belong to them. Even if they could get one, it would not be enough for them to share. Moreover, their young master, Huang Jinyuan, was there. How could Huang Jinyuan give such a supreme treasure of creation to them? This was simply impossible. Of course, if they could help their young master, Huang Jinyuan, obtain this supreme treasure of creation, they would be greatly rewarded. For the 2 of them, it would be great if they could enter the ancient spirit sacred pond to cultivate. The ancient spirit sacred pond was a sacred place for cultivation in the ancient spirit Tao sect. Only the elders could enter the ancient spirit Tao sect to cultivate. Of course, there was also the young lord of the ancient spirit Tao sect and the young lord candidates. Only the true monstrous geniuses were qualified to enter. Even their young master, Huang Jinyuan, had only cultivated in the ancient spirit sacred pond twice. However, each time he cultivated in the ancient spirit sacred pond, he could make a breakthrough in his cultivation. This was very rare. It was especially difficult for a Tao lord to make a breakthrough. However, there were almost no bottlenecks in the ancient spirit sacred pond. This was the most attractive part of the ancient spirit sacred pond. However, the most attractive part wasn't the breakthrough in cultivation. It was said that the ancient spirit sacred pond contained the inheritance of the ancient golden tree. If they could obtain the inheritance of the ancient golden tree, it would be amazing. The ancient golden tree was the patriarch of the ancient spirit Tao sect. It was said that he was an unparalleled master at the overlord level of the universe. How precious and powerful was his Tao art inheritance. If they could obtain the inheritance of the patriarch in the ancient spirit sacred pond, they would be able to get rid of their current status. They would no longer be Huang Jinyuan's followers. They could become candidates for the young master of the ancient spirit Tao sect. They could even surpass Huang Jinyuan's status. Because of this, the greatest reward in the ancient spirit Tao sect wasn't a supreme treasure, but a place to cultivate in the ancient spirit sacred pond. However, for the two of them, this was an opportunity as well as a huge crisis. The furnace was filled with a terrifying, devouring power. Such a power made them feel their souls tremble. This was enough to prove that this furnace could endanger their lives. This was the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing. If he didn't get any credit and instead lost his life, then it wouldn't be worth it. However, it was utterly impossible for Mu He and Mu Lian to refuse at this moment. Their young master, Huang Jinyuan, had already given the order for them to attack and kill the man in front of them. It was rare for their young master to say something like this. It was obvious how important this treasure was to Huang Jinyuan. In his heart, the lives of the two of them could not be compared to such a supreme treasure of creation. As a result, the two of them felt somewhat indignant, but there was nothing they could do. Their lives were not in their control. No matter how helpless they were, they couldn't change this fact. Reality was too cruel. They didn't have the leeway to refuse. Unless they died. If they resisted, they would die. Now they could only fight. Moreover, Huang Jinyuan might not be willing to let the two of them die. After all, the two of them could be of great help to Huang Jinyuan. In fact, the two of them had always been unfriendly. However, they did it on purpose. If they didn't do it on purpose, their joint attack technique was too powerful. The strength that they could unleash was terrifying. Their potential was enormous. If they exposed it too much, they would be feared. Because of this, the two of them did not dare to show their true strength and potential. Although their joint attack technique was powerful and their talent was astonishing, they couldn't be compared to a true heaven's pride like Huang Jinyuan. If they exposed it, they would be feared and ostracized by others. The two of them were smart people. They knew what to do. However, this time, the two of them could no longer hold back their strength. If they continued to hold back their strength, only death would await them. However, at this time, Yang Hongwu would not give the two of them a chance. He could see that although the two of them were controlled by Huang Jinyuan, they actually had other thoughts. They seemed to want to hold back their strength. However, Yang Hongwu saw this point clearly and exploded in an instant. A terrifying flame burst out from the devouring furnace. This flame condensed into the red lotus of karmic fire, instantly enveloping Mu He and Mu Lian. The two of them realized this and reacted very quickly. However, Yang Hongwu did not give them chance. Even though the two of them reacted quickly, their bodies were still contaminated with the power of the karmic fire. Although it was only a little bit of the karmic fire, it was enough to ignite the karmic fire on their bodies. Yang Hongwu's red lotus karmic fire was no longer the red lotus karmic fire of the past. The current red lotus karmic fire was vastly different from before. After all, Yang Hongwu's strength had risen to an unbelievable level. More importantly, when Yang Hongwu devoured the space origin and space great path law in this space, he refined a trace of the power of the curse. The power of the curse was integrated by Yang Hongwu. Now, how terrifying was the power of the curse attached to the karmic fire? The power of the curse was not the power of an ordinary person. It was the power of the curse of an unparalleled expert who was infinitely close to becoming an overlord of the universe. The power of the curse combined with the power of the karmic fire, infected Mu He and Mu Lien. In just a few breaths, it had already invaded their souls. Yang Hanwu had previously endured many powerful curses. Now that he could extract a trace of the power of the curse, his use of the power of the curse was definitely not inferior to those peak experts who cultivated the power of the curse. Damn it, this is the power of the karmic fire and the power of the curse. After being infected by the power of the curse, Mu He and Mu Lien immediately shouted, "Young master, help, help!" The two of them immediately retreated to Huang Jinyuan's side. The two of them had not revealed their trump cards yet, but it was meaningless. Even if they revealed their trump cards, they would not be able to get rid of the karmic fire and the power of the karmic fire. They could only hope that Huang Jinyuan would help them get rid of the terrifying power of the curse and the power of the karmic fire. Chapter 2184. At this moment, Huang Jinyuan was still in a state of shock. He only regained his senses when he heard Mu He and Mu Lien's cries for help. The scene that had just taken place was too shocking. The terrifying power of the curse that contained the power of a supreme great path venerate was too strong. Not only that, but there was also the power of hellfire. Hellfire was extremely rare in the endless void and the various great universes. It could be said that hellfire existed in every great universe, but hellfire wasn't something that could be possessed by just anyone. Generally speaking, hellfire had its own consciousness, and even universe overlords might not be able to control it. That was the power of the Great Path. Furthermore, hellfire was different in different universes. It was also divided into different levels. However, the hellfire that this aboriginal had unleashed was obviously completely under his control. Furthermore, its power was extremely terrifying. The hellfire was actually combined with the curse. This was even more unbelievable. Even a great path venerate might not be able to do it. However, a mere sovereign realm aboriginal had managed to do it. This was inconceivable, and also made people feel fear and dread. Huang Jinyuan was also very glad. If he had not let Mu He and Mu Lien go up, he would have been the one in such a state. He might not have been able to get rid of the hellfire and the power of the curse by himself. Huang Jinyuan waved his hand, and a surge of golden dermic power entered Mu Lien and Mu He's bodies. However, as soon as the golden dermic power entered their bodies, the terrifying power of the karmic fire and the power of the curse coiled around them like poisonous snakes. Huang Jinyuan jumped in fright and hurriedly cut off his dermic power. He didn't dare to allow these terrifying curses to wrap around him. As for Mu He and Mu Lien, they were only his servants after all. If they died, then so be it. It would only cause him to have one less person to order around. It would not be a great loss to him. However, if he was infected by the terrifying power of the curse, he would be in big trouble. At least, from what he had seen just now, he did not have the confidence to get rid of this wisp of curse power. It was only a wisp of curse power. If there was more, it would be even worse. "Young master, save us." Mu He and Mu Lien retreated when they saw Huang Jinyuan. They knew that they were in big trouble. The two of them could not get rid of these two powers by themselves. They could only rely on Huang Jinyuan's power. However, Huang Jinyuan did not seem to be willing to pay a huge price for their sake. The two of them had risked their lives for Huang Jinyuan. They did not know how many things they had done for Huang Jinyuan. They had even committed a lot of sins. However, they had never imagined that Huang Jinyuan would be unwilling to save their lives under such circumstances. Although the karmic fire and the power of the curse were overbearing, Huang Jinyuan might have a way to get rid of it. After all, Huang Jinyuan had the blessing of the ancient spirit Dao Sect's patriarch. Even if he couldn't completely get rid of the power of the curse, suppressing it wouldn't be too much of a problem. However, Huang Jinyuan was not willing to do so. He did not want to waste this power, nor was he willing to take the risk. This caused Mu He and Mu Lien to feel bitter in their hearts. They looked at Huang Jinyuan with eyes filled with resentment. "Mu He, Mu Lien, The power of the curse is too domineering. I have no way to get rid of it. Huang Jinyuan said to Mu He and Mu Lian. Hold on. Wait until I catch that aboriginal. I'll get him to get rid of the power of the curse for you. After saying that, Huang Jinyuan strode towards Yang Hongwu. Although he was wary of Yang Hongwu's terrifying power of the karmic fire and curse, Huang Jinyuan was very careful. He knew where his advantage was. He was the young master of the ancient spirit Tao sect. He had a high status. Moreover, the cultivation technique he practiced was very powerful. He had already reached the Tao sovereign realm. Although the aboriginal in front of him was very talented and had many protective treasures, his cultivation was too weak. He was only at the sovereign realm. There was a huge gap between them. Using the treasures on him would consume a lot of spiritual energy. Obviously, a sovereign realm cultivator would not be able to do that. Therefore, Huang Jinyuan only needed to stall for time and exhaust Yang Hongwu's power. Yang Hongwu's lips curled into a smile as he watched Huang Jinyuan's scheme. Yang Hongwu knew that Huang Jinyuan did not dare to fight him head-on. He was wary of his karmic fire, especially the power of the curse. However, in reality, he had only extracted a trace of the power of the curse. If he wanted to use the power of the curse again, it would be impossible for him to do so. He did not have that much time to extract the power of the curse. He had miscalculated. For Yang Hongwu, this was an excellent opportunity. Moreover, for Yang Hongwu, this was not his true trump card. His true trump card was this formation. It was a terrifying, devouring formation. It used the common people's great world and his devouring furnace as the eye of the formation. The purpose was to devour all the power in this space into his common people's great world and increase the power of the common people's great world. This was a huge gamble by Yang Hongwu. If he failed, the common people's great world and the great seal of the common people's great world would fall by a level. However, if he succeeded, the great seal of the common people's great world and the common people's great world would be greatly improved. In this way, Yang Hongwu's power would also increase. Although his cultivation realm would not increase, his combat power would not increase by just a little bit. After all, the common people's great world was Yang Hongwu's original inner world. Once it was improved, the strength of the martial artists in the world would also increase greatly. That was equivalent to Yang Hongwu's own power increasing. It should be known that as the master of a world, he could borrow the power of his own world to fight. The stronger the world, the more power the master of the world could borrow. In the past, when Yang Hongwu mobilized the power of the common people's great world, he could only display a power comparable to that of a Tao Lord. That was because the power of the common people's great world was still too weak. His own spiritual power was also not strong enough. If the common people's great world was strong enough, then he would be able to erupt with even greater combat power. He would not be so passive when facing experts. If Huang Jinyuan were to fight him to the death from the beginning, with his tyrannical cultivation and powerful strength, he would not be able to gain any advantage at all. He might even be completely suppressed by Huang Jinyuan. After all, Huang Jinyuan also had an inner world in his body, and there was a spiritual root of fate in his inner world. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.